never seen a smile so big on my little Lord lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, CFN. How's everybody doing tonight? Just want to get my phone so that it's not robbing us of Wi-Fi. As you know, we have nothing but Wi-Fi issues lately for some other unknown reason. Don't know. We've called Rogers. Rogers doesn't have a clue. Sometimes they never have a clue. But anyway, needless to say, I don't want to spend any more time on a phone trying to figure things out. I want to spend time with you guys. Thanks so much for joining us, Tony. Nice to see you. Steven, nice to see you. Manny's in the house. Bob's here as well. What's up, Bob? Jim Fowler's here. Mark Wolf, who has been extremely busy with the CFN Fish Off. And, of course, Mike Howard. Eve, always a pleasure to see you. Manny, yeah, Manny's had a fantastic weekend. I have to say, when it comes to weather, I hope you guys are beating the heat some way, somehow. You're lathering up sunscreen. You're doing whatever it needs to be done in order to protect yourself and keep safe. But yeah, Brampton internet is nasty, Tony. I'm living it. I'm living proof. But as I said, hopefully everybody stays cool. We've got quite a week ahead of us when it comes to weather. Those who live in Ontario will understand what I mean when the remnants of Burl come through, and Jim's going to talk about a little bit about it, what is expected out his way, out in the Kingston way. But yeah, I have to say we have had quite the week. And speaking of the great weekend, I have to say that I love seeing events like this. And Bob, you were a big reason why I wanted to bring this up. This past weekend was the annual Fishing for Autism event out in the Cornwall area. I'm not exactly sure where. I'm going to assume it was on the shores of the St. Lawrence. But Bob was nice enough to give us sort of some background in regards to this event, which is really cool. It's not just about fishing. There's a lot for kids to do, including a bouncy castle. There's motorcycle rides. There's a train ride. Akwesasne Police is out there. There's hot dogs, hamburgers. But then they're handed these rods. And I don't know if they're donated or purchased by the event organizers, but needless to say, there is a mess of rods. And I know because I've been building them myself. Now, they get a passport, and they go around to each of the booths prior to going fishing. And it's kind of cool because they have that passport. They have to get stamped as they go to each tent or event. And as I said, they could be doing anything, motorcycle rides, face painting, you name it. But once they're finished, they get their fishing rods, which I believe is donated. They go down to the lake and fish for the rest of the afternoon. They're fed hot dogs and hamburgers. It's a grand old time. The kids have a fabulous time. And of course, there's all kinds of folks and volunteers that help out in a huge way. And if you recognize that fella on the left, that is our very own Terry Snyder, who is a big proponent of that event. But it happens every year. I'm going to assume it's going to happen again next year. And Bob, if you could, please keep us informed. We'd love to know what's going on because it sounds really cool. The whole idea of the kids going around to different venues and tents and getting their passport stamped. It's all for a great cause. Autism is something that our youth, including our adults, struggle with. But when we're able to provide something for our young anglers, our young folks who are struggling with autism, a day out fishing, as I said, there's a lot of folks that have autism that fish. And I don't know what the connection is. someone hopefully who's a lot smarter than I and paid a lot more money than I can explain it. But fishing somehow helps with autism. And I think it's really, really cool. So, Bob, again, thanks so much for doing that. And, of course, Steve and Mike, who's in the background, putting up all the comments. God bless you all. It is definitely a team effort. Now, speaking of the fish off, holy smokes, we're going to have our very own Mike Consul come in here in a sec, and he's going to give us an update. We are going to have Tourney Tuesday tomorrow, but Mike's going to let us know where we're at, where we're going to be, and where we should be looking for in the future. Mike Consul, always a pleasure to see you, buddy. Holy
hey.
It's been busy. The judges have been just
know.
Holy crap.
It has been amazing. Let me go share my screen right here. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. And so this is the organizer panel. People don't see this side of it, but if we look at total number of participants for the CFN fish off, it is 403. And so if I just do this, it's like 400, over 400 people have signed up. And of those 400 people right now, we have cracked over 1,000 entries. So 1,270 fish have been entered, and the judges have been doing a good job because only 150 are pending right now. So they're keeping it on top of it for sure. So thank you everyone for sending in your fish. And next week, well, not next week, what am I talking about? Tomorrow, we are giving away our first weekly draw. It's a next save combo. So every single fish from the first day until Sunday, so that's week 1, you have a ballot. Some of you might have 1 ballot. Some of you might have 25 ballots. We are going to take one of those names, and we are going to give away a next save combo. So join us tomorrow on Tourney Tuesday. And of these 400 anglers, there's, let me see, this is multi-species madness. 61 of them are a little bit more competitive. They've put in the $50 registration fee. So 54 of you have put in the $50 registration fee because you can win cash. So if I'm just doing the math quickly, 40% of that pot is $1,080. So whoever wins multi-species madness as of right now will win $1,080. And the way you win it is you catch 10 different species. The person with the longest length gets that 40% of that pot. So that's $1,080. The more people that register, the bigger the pot. And not only the winner wins cash, but you also win a Shimano Stratic. And the top 5 lengths, total lengths, will win cash as well. So join us tomorrow because we will be giving away next save combo, and we'll be talking a little bit more about both multi-species madness and the CFN fish off.
And Mike, to your point, of course, you know, these are some of the prizes, if you guys can see that are available through the fish off. And of course, this is what Mike is talking about when it comes to small multi-species madness. And if you have any questions, I got May Pankhurst reached out to me today, and she had a question, and I invited her to join us tomorrow, and anybody else who has some questions. But I think the biggest thing is, Mike, is as this starts to gain traction, there are folks out there that, you know, will realize now that they can win a prize each week. Can I still enter? When's the deadline for me to enter?
So August 5th is when the tournament ends. You can enter August 4th and catch as many species as you want and put them in. But the earlier that you enter, the longer of a chance you have to submit more fish, because every fish you submit is 1 ballot, which means, you know, you could submit on the last day, but you only will have 24 hours to get as many entries as possible. So submit anytime. It's already started, but you can submit anytime, whether it's multi-species madness or the CFN fish off. You can enter anytime between now and August 5th.
Now, Mike, before you go, I do want to mention this as well. It is a month or so off, actually almost 2 months off. But of course, this is upcoming, the 3rd annual OFC Nation retreat up at Camp McIntosh. It's happening September 27th to the 29th. Those are the prices. Of course, that is all the information you need. If you want to get a hold of Andre and Tracy, Tracy's probably likely going to take all of your questions via the phone. but there's only the one cabin left, Mike.
I think there's 4 beds left, right?
That's it. That's all that's left. So if you want to get in there, you'll have the whole cabin to yourself. So if you're interested, please get a hold of Tracy up at Camp McIntosh so we can get that last cabin booked, and you can join these characters again this year at the wonderful Camp McIntosh.
Can you show that picture with the 2 fish? If you love smallie fishing, it is the best smallie fishing I have ever done. So that fish was caught at Camp McIntosh. And if you like pike and muskie fishing, that pike, look how fat that pike is. That pike was caught last year at Camp McIntosh. So we do a mini CFN fish off over those 3 days at Camp McIntosh. And that pike was the biggest pike. And even though that smallie is big, it wasn't even close to the #1 smallie. So come on down. It is awesome.
Right on, Mike. We'll let you go, and we'll play this video as we say goodbye, and we will say hello again to you tomorrow, Turdy Tuesday. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Macintosh 2023.
Now, of course, that's not all that's going on. Of course, we are going to have our 7th annual CFN retreat up at Horwood Lake Lodge. Warren and Doris are just tickled pink to know that the camp is booked for this event. All those who are coming, thanks so much for signing up as you did. We have a great time up there, and the fishing has been phenomenal. But if you are interested in perhaps maybe booking another date, maybe you want to go up next week, maybe you've got some free time next month. Again, the fishing, it doesn't necessarily, it changes. It doesn't get bad, if you will, as time goes on, but it changes. And you'll always catch fish, and you're always going to catch eaters, and you're always going to have a good feed of walleye. But more importantly, you're going to have multi-species days, just like this. Give Doris and Warren a call and get your butt booked in a bed somewhere, somehow, some week, some month, and enjoy what CFNers know as a great venue for fishing. You're going to love it. The food is phenomenal. Our good buddy Richard Dunlop just came back with his beautiful wife, Bernadette. They had a fabulous time. We're going to be featuring them again tomorrow, on Wednesday for Walleye Wednesday. But in the meantime, we've got Big Jim coming up right after this.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
And he's not a bad guy either.
My moments.
How you doing, Jim?
I'm hanging in, buddy. I'm hanging in.
Attaboy. It's always a pleasure to have you share your time with us. Busy as always. I can't even begin to imagine what you're neck deep in. Is it the magazine? Is it tying jigs?
The magazine is done. It's gone to the webmaster. So it's gone to the webmaster, and we had a couple of glitches. So Tammy had to fix some things there, like 5-minute fixes, So we got that done, and I would assume we'll probably get a call from him later tonight and tell us that it's up. So, or if not, tomorrow morning.
That's awesome. Yes, at Manny, we love the intro as well. Hey, fellow, hope you're well. Yeah, absolutely, we all do. Richard's in the house. Always a pleasure to have everybody here joining us with Big Jim. Jim, I got to get your take on something that I saw It's a variation of the Nico rig. You probably know the angler better than I, but I thought this was really interesting when it comes to heavy cover. If you're looking for something to penetrate, to look lively, I thought this was really cool.
Bait that I've caught a lot of bass on over my career, and it's a Nico rig, but it's rigged a little bit different than what you're normally used to seeing. We've got the nail. This is a Strike King finesse worm. We've got the nail weight, tungsten nail weight in the head, 32nds or 1/16 ounce. I put an O-ring in it here and a 3/0 hook. And what I do is I take the hook in above the O-ring here, and I've got a little keeper on that hook behind the O-ring, keeps it in place real good, and then I insert the hook point in the slender part of the finesse worm. You can skip this bait, you can throw this bait in any type of cover. It's super weedless, comes through anything. If you've got a really rocky lake where you're having a hard time getting like a shaky head through, and you're staying hung up all the time, this bait will come through it. If you're fishing shallow water brush, like targeting laydowns and stuff like that, and you want a finesse approach, this bait's the way to go. If you're skipping it back underneath like docks, when there's brush and there's gnarly stuff and you can't really fish a wacky rig efficiently with an exposed hook, this bait will get it done.
This bait will get it done.
Yeah, I love the accents. It's like, hot dang, boy.
That's it. I love it.
It's funny, when I spent a lot of time in the States before, years ago, I'd come home and I talked like that for a week after I got home. Everyone's like, Tammy be giving me a funny look, eh?
It is infectious. I'll tell you, it is infectious to hear.
But that's a really cool looking thing to do.
To me, Jim, I don't know if it's good enough to puncture through some of the cover that you fish.
That's makes it a whole different thing then, eh, Scotty? That's when you need, like, notice like out the back there this year. That's what I've been using right there.
Yeah.
That's a 1 ounce ultra tungsten.
Yeah.
And that's like when I joke around with the big jig head, like, when you drop that, you know it's going down. That's Mike Nabulsi's jelly shad too, and I love this thing. It's really funny, we always fish with crayfish, but I mean, 3/4 of what they have in their stomach a lot of times is bait fish. So what's more shaped like a bait fish?
Right.
And last year I crushed it with this out the back here.
I was just going to say the colors on that, Jim, are just unbelievable.
Yeah. And I'm not usually into that type of color, but it just looks like a sunfish.
Yep, it sure does.
And it rigs up really, really well. I got it on a VMC hook there, and it rigs up really, really well. Stays on. Caught multiple fish on the same one. That's I got that on one of the new GLX rods. You can see it's brand new.
Sweet, yeah.
Nice and shiny.
That cork is showroom condition.
Yeah, well, it's kind of brand new. It's kind of an expensive rod. I think if you walked in a shop to buy one, they're like $7.59 or something.
Wow.
But no, beautiful rods. Absolutely beautiful rods.
Tony's asking.
Sorry, Scotty?
Tony's asking, no swivels on that?
See this, Tony?
Wow.
Now, you know what you could use for that heavy stuff too? Hang on. Here, I got some stuff here. Always got stuff on the desk here. Uh-oh. There's not this here. This is something you probably haven't seen, Scotty. It's a little thing called a Tokyo rig. That'll work.
It's so ironic that you bring that up, because I was looking through reels. Yeah, and I was actually going to share it tonight. You beat me to it, Jim. It was how to rig a Tokyo rig, and I was gonna play it and say, Jim, have you seen this before?
But I had a really good talk with a buddy of mine today. He doesn't fish tournaments, or not today, yesterday. He doesn't fish tournaments. He's a crackerjack fisherman. I mean, a crackerjack. Yeah, if he doesn't give a damn about tournaments. He's never fished one in his life. He fished a big fish contest one day, and it was the top 5 fish, and he won 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So he just didn't have to get the big ones. But something I got him turned on to, and he's caught so many fish this year, and you've seen me catch a lot of fish with it.
Oh yeah, yep, 100%. Yes, sir.
Rattle baits, that's a brand new one on. That's used one day.
That's brand new, Jim.
Yeah, one day in the water.
How many fish did you catch with? Look at all the paint off it.
Well, a lot of that's the hooks, but it's just that it's used. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
Go out and they make 4 or 5 casts with it. Don't catch anything. Put it back in the box. And that's why I used to bug people at the sportsman show. I used to tell them, you got your crankbaits. You pay $15 for it. You take it out. You make 3 or 4 casts. You don't catch anything. You take it out. You wipe it all down there. Buff it up nice. Blow dry, and you put it back in the tackle box again. You got to be bouncing it off rocks, tearing it through the weeds. And man, oh man, I'm telling you, not just the rattle baits, but crankbaits too. It's the same thing. Yeah. You have to use them. You have to give them their chance. Like, I mean, I don't know, 3/4 of the, probably 2/3 of the money I won came on crankbaits.
Wow.
And, you watch them in the States. It's not just, guys, oh, that's an American thing. No, it's not.
And it's funny you say that, because I think because of its introduction, it was new to us Canadian anglers. And of course, Rapala was the first one to sort of really break the mold for a guy my vintage. And we used them, especially for walleye. I mean, you couldn't keep them off it. But of course, you get the pike and you'd lose the odd one. And as the price started to go up, it was like, do I really want to pitch a crankbait, or do I want to just throw these cheap plastics? But again, they are definitely one of those baits that it's a confidence bait, and I'm sure it's a huge confidence bait for you.
Yeah, when I take it out, I just expect I'm going to catch. Well, I'm going to catch fish. That's all that is to it.
And I've seen
lots of different species too. Same with crankbaits, not just bass. I mean, I've had days where I get bit off 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, it happens. And with jigs, oh my Lord, there was days with Rocky and I, between us, when we fished in tournaments between pike and muskie, we'd lose a dozen jigs.
Yeah.
The bite offs, on deep weed lines. Now most of those are pike. Kawarth is the odd, back then there would have been some muskies, but it's I mean, those things work. But rattle baits, you should always be using them when you get to somewhere that you haven't fished. That's where those things can really shine, because you have to cover a lot of water to learn the area. So if you're fishing with a jig, you throw it out and you got to bounce along the bottom, bring it back slow. But you could be 200 yards away from a fish, but you don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So if you're using something that you're straining the water with, it's amazing how you can, learn an area quickly, and you'll find pieces of weed. You'll feel it bang off a boulder. The number of boulders I've found, Scotty, where a crankbait wasn't touching anything, and all of a sudden I feel boom, 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 and then nothing again. And I go over and look, and there's a big giant rock in the water, and then you come back the next day and you throw a jig on it because it's right there, and out comes the 4-pounder. Like the number of times it's scary. It's absolutely scary. Hey, speaking of boulders,
I was just going to say, speaking of scary, Rocky, every time you mention that name, he thinks you're referring to him. George is asking an interesting question, not to cut you off, but I've actually never been asked this. Is it Rapala or is it Rapala? It's Rapala.
Yeah. Like I met a couple of the Rapala family one day down in Oshawa years ago, like probably 20 years ago. And I was introduced to them as Enzo Rapala, not Enzo Rapella.
Yeah.
Or, and Rapala.
Rapala. That's what
I actually have a book that they gave me. It's over here on my bookshelf. It's a coffee table book.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
Here we go. Right on. Yeah, bass, pike, 100%. They love them. Mark, well, you've had lots of success during the fish off. We've seen it firsthand, what you're managing to catch. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book, Scotty. If you ever, it's all about how it was all, and everything that was invented how they show back to the room where he started making them and all kinds of stuff. But they gave this to me, and stupid me left without getting them all to sign it.
Oh boy. Yeah.
On eBay for that sign now? Oh.
Steve's asking, so Jim, do you use crankbaits to search more often than spinnerbaits? Yeah.
Yeah, see, when I started fishing, it was a spinnerbait. And, you talk to Ricky Clun, spinnerbait's still the deal. Who's going to argue with him? Fish still eat spinnerbaits. It's one of those, one of those things. I think it's just that I became a lot more proficient with a crankbait and a rattlebait, especially the crankbait. Like I've gotten better with a rattlebait in the last decade than I was when I actually fished tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't spend as much time with it in the weeds, but no, they're and that jackal and that color, that super shed,
Now, when it comes to hard baits, we're going to sell a lot of bait fuel. This new stick that they have, we spoke about it briefly last week.
My deal on that, especially the way it is, because it's got the ribs on it. It'll really stick to it.
We'll have a look, folks. If you know nothing about this, you're going to learn a lot, and I'll tell you, we're going to sell a lot of bait fuel tonight after you see this video.
Reason why the bait fuel stick is sold out across the nation and online everywhere. Here's why.
My word.
Yeah, when Bruce Tufts explained that to me, several times he's been here, we always come around to talking to it. And when he explained to me about the tests that they did about how, there'd be 7 or 8 fish in the tank, and everyone would have to suck the bait in and spit it back out. It would go through the pack. They would all have to try it because they know it's real. And one of the things that really stuck in his head was watching them in the water going, they know there's something there, they can taste it.
Really?
Smell it, but there's no lure there. It's just the stuff that's come off it.
No way.
Is in the water, yeah. Yeah, he told me there's a room with a big gray shelves, those big industrial shelves with just literally totes of scientific material that was done as a scientist would do. Not, Billy Bob caught 2 fish on it last week. We got to get it.
That's hilarious. Speaking of Billy Bob, and no disrespect to any anglers down in the South, we love you just as much as we love our own. But speaking of which, we one of the reasons we were a little bit delayed getting started tonight was there was a great discussion that I want to have with each of the panel guests tonight, because I want their take. They're all tournament anglers. They've all probably been in this situation. Jim's going to share a situation that he has encountered. But this happened, and I believe it was during an MLF tournament. Jordan Lee is the angler that is speaking to an angler that's far away. We can't hear what he's saying, unfortunately. But I just and guys that are watching, I want your take. Is he right? Did he go too far? Is the other angler wrong? We'd love to hear what you have to say, but we'll play the video for each of our guests tonight, Jim, Jason, and of course, Moose, who's going to be coming up after. And I just want your take. I just want to know where you guys are at, because I don't know. I really don't know what's right or what's wrong.
Dude, you didn't throw a frog all the first day. You didn't throw a frog. You know you didn't. No, you didn't. You would have caught 30 pounds. I got a chance to win the tournament. If you threw it the first day, I'd be cool with it. If you were out here, but you weren't. Yeah, I'd probably. If you had a chance to win, you'd feel the same way. Nope. Nobody was out here. Nobody was out here. You were 2 miles that way.
I know. I had no idea where anybody
So that's pretty much it. And just to, recap and try and explain, obviously Jordan's in the lead. It's the last day of the event. I don't know what has led up to this, but at the end of the day, you've got an angler that is very close to where you are. And obviously Jordan's done really well in this area, throwing a frog. Jim, I'll let you take it from there. Is he right?
Well,
is he wrong?
yeah,
Did he go too far?
it's really hard for us to fathom it. Even, I was a big fish here. You can't fathom with a guy like that down the way they're doing it. It's a whole different thing, And the way I saw that was, he didn't go far. He didn't go too far. He went on too long. And I think he would have got himself frazzled and he wouldn't have fished well after. And that's not good. And that's why a lot of times when I ran into stuff like that up here, I was pretty sharp with my mouth, as you know, a lot of times. And I would have something quick to say and it'd be over and done. Because you can see Jordan was upset. And I mean, he's not a big guy, big tough guy or whatever that's going to get in your boat, knock your block off or anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or back at the weigh-in. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of a thing. I can see his frustration, because I mean, it wouldn't be hard to see if somebody had been there the day before.
And Jay talked about that before we went live. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty easy to see somebody. At the distance he was away from him, he was a pretty good distance away. Mm-hmm. He was getting right about to where it might have started to twinge me. Inside that 2, 3, 4 cast type thing, shouting distance, and it doesn't do any good to get yourself heated over it, because you're not going to fish well. He did win that tournament. That was the Red Crest Championship, but it's one of those things. It's been done before by unscrupulous people. They've come on top of people fishing. And that's crap. That is like double times crap when you do that. I've had that happen to me. I've had guys come 25 feet away from me when I'm fishing in a weed bed. They're literally a pitch, like the length of the boat, and try and fish beside me.
You talked about a time when you were with Rocky where another boat recognized both you and
Rocky. Yeah. Rocky and I, it was on Cooch, and I mean, that's where I had the field day. And, I won, like over $100,000 in a month there, 120 grand a month. Yeah. And Rocky and I were fishing a team tournament. We're doing pretty well. We're fishing a weed line, and all of a sudden, we're standing there, and all of a sudden we hear somebody, coming down the lake, and we hear the one guy yells to the other guy, because he's got the big motor going, and he yells over to him, "Hey, look, there's Big Jim and Rocky. Let's fish over there." And they come, and they were literally like the length of my office in front of us. And that's what I explained.
Now, is that where they made their mistake, Jim? Is it because they went in front as opposed to?
Yeah, if they would have went behind me. Now, they told us that they weren't coming to fish there once I called them on it. They said they were going into the shore. Well, if you're going into the shore, do you have to cut so close in front of me that we can have a conversation without yelling? That's how close we are.
Yeah.
And they went in, as I told you earlier, fished for like five minutes, and they went out behind us, but I don't know, things like that, it's, but these guys know a lot about fishing. And when they see a guy pull in like that, even if he'd been fishing there and he'd been pitching the big sinker with the plastic valve, like I showed you, and all of a sudden he sees you catching them with a frog. And although he's the flipping master and he's been catching them flipping all week, and then all of a sudden he gets close enough to you to see what you're doing, you get a little wound up. Because you know what's going on.
Is it? I guess for me, being from the outside,
that wasn't a bad one, eh?
What's that?
That wasn't a bad one. They were
no, and that's the beautiful thing, and that's why I shared it tonight, because it didn't get the heated. There was no bad language or any of that. He called them on it. I think, to your point, I think he took it too far in terms of how long he
it wasn't even that it escalated. It was like it was on repeat.
Yes.
It was the
Because
same thing.
I'll be honest, the other angler, even though we couldn't really hear what he was saying, it seemed like he recognized what Jordan was saying and looked like he was starting to move.
Yeah, he did turn around. He was going to leave. Yeah. Yeah. So, one of those things. But the best one ever was the one with Mike Iconelli and Kevin Van Dam. When
I didn't hear.
Oh, that's the famous one.
Okay.
Played to death a million times, and Iconelli came in right on top of him, like within a cast. And Kevin, who's the most mild-mannered and meek guy, he could called Iconelli on it, and they got into a little bit of a thing. And Iconelli's up in the front going mental, like, because he's a little different sometimes.
Mhm.
He's having a whack job afternoon, and Van Dam calls him on it, and he looks at Van Dam and he says, "Well, I don't know why you can't understand it. This is a community hole. It's a family hole. Everybody's here." And he said, "But that's the problem. You're not part of the family."
Ooh.
He said that to Iconelli.
Ooh, yeah,
And
no, I
when he
missed
said
that.
when he said that, Iconelli packed up and left.
Wow.
They're buddies now. They talked it over.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean,
Iconelli
it's
was like in the wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill was saying too, he used to get worked up. Now I just pick up and move for Waller. There's a lot of spots in the end. Chances are they need to jump spots. They aren't serious competition, but down there, of course, with the amount of money that's involved,
Well,
it is. And
a fishing spot and $100,000 is two different things, eh?
yeah, 100%. It is pretty serious down there. And again, as Steve mentioned, it's just an ethical thing. And I have to agree. When you know someone's in the lead, you must recognize the boat because you fish against these guys all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like you don't know.
And it doesn't even have to be the lead.
True.
Doesn't even have to be the lead. But you see some of these guys, some of them are just unscrupulous. There's the odd one. But see, those guys don't last. And they don't even last up here where it's little compared to down there. I mean, people don't realize how big bass fishing in the States is. They don't realize how skilled and how knowledgeable these guys are. They're really the vast majority of those guys are in a league all of their own, eh?
Well, I know a guy who's definitely leagues ahead of myself, and I learn from him each and every time. I don't know how many times we fished together where you're saying, "Are you not fishing?" No, man, I'm watching. Like I feel like I'm at school.
I like the 23.5 last year.
Yeah.
You got the little one?
That's right. Yes.
I'm up to 24, and I said, no, 23.5.
I remember that. Hey, guys, this isn't going to cut it. Like, Jim's never going to invite us back if this is all I'm going to catch. But I have to say, again, I'll mention it when I was out with Derek Strube, I was so proud. And I took a video and I said, Jimmy would be so proud. This is a 3-pound smallmouth, man. Now he knows I can catch fish. It was a great moment. Totally redeemed myself. Well, as you mentioned, the Just Fishing magazine is ready. What else are you going to be busy with this week, Jim?
Well, tomorrow I got to go. I got to leave here probably about 5:30, 5 o'clock. I got about 5-6 places to go. And if I get done in time, I'll make a phone call and drop in at the gym for a beating. And then what else have I got? Wednesday, I have a bunch of odds and ends, a few phone calls and things. Let me see. Friday, I'm going to get the wrap on the tailgate of the truck replaced.
Oh, okay.
It got part of it. I don't know whether somebody did something to it or whatever, but it got a big scrape on it.
Oh,
and it's leaked behind it all.
Oh, so it's bubbling out.
So it's got to be changed, eh? So I'm getting that. That's a quick $500 out of your pocket, eh? 100%. But it has to be done, so I'll get that done, and then on the weekend, hopefully, I'll get my boat beside the marker buoys down here, and I'll be able to get out and get at it.
Beautiful, buddy. Well, listen, we wish you nothing but Godspeed and safe travels, and we're looking forward to seeing you out in the water. And again, we can't thank you enough for all the time and dedication that you have to our community and just angling in general. Bud, you have a huge heart, and we love you for it.
I appreciate it, buddy. You guys have a great time fishing.
All the best, bud. Have a great week. We'll talk soon. Peace. We have Jay Lawrence. Jay Barnucz coming up right after this.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Amen to that. There is Jay Barnucz in the house. Jay,
What's happening, buddy?
Oh, I'll tell you, it's a feverish pace that we're on right now. And I have to say, we played the video. There's no need to hear the audio again. But I'm really interested to hear your take, because you did have a lot to add before we went live tonight. But of course, this is the confrontation. The whole reason we're talking about it is because it ended in a good way. I want to look at it as a positive, but also a way of maybe teaching folks that are interested in getting involved in tournaments, but maybe they don't know the ethics. Maybe they don't know the do's and don'ts.
I think the ethics, whether you're in a tournament or whether we're just out fishing the same bay, Scotty, once we as anglers, once you start coming in on us, there's two approaches. You can either come in, and maybe there's three approaches. You come in, don't say anything. You come in and be disrespectful, or you come in and have a conversation and maybe ask, hey, mind if I fish here? Or, I think this example here is something that probably we experience, a lot of us, on a regular basis. And everyone has different comfort zones with how close is too close. I know that, I know in some bass tournaments, they might even try and put a distance between boats, can't come within certain distance of each other. That's really, I don't even know how that rule is enforced, to be honest. And I don't like rules that can't be enforced. But I do feel that, I had a situation on the weekend. I mentioned it backstage, where I was fishing a very secluded part of Long Point Bay by myself. And I was in the kayak, and literally I had a few boaters actually ask me, where'd you come from? Because I was so far from an access point. I think I did just shy of 20 kilometers in the kayak on Sunday.
Wow.
And I'm out there and I'm by myself. Trevor had plans and Owen had plans. So I was solo. And, I heard these guys, they were fishing, a couple older guys, and they were trying to catch bass. And it was a beautiful day, but not for fish. It was bluebird. It was flat calm, and the fish were real spooky. And I had to change I was junk fishing. I changed my presentation so many times till I got onto a bit of a pattern. And, they were out there fishing I saw their boat from a distance, and I saw they were there for a while, and they were just anchored. Like, they don't have a trolling motor. They're just anchored in a bulrush patch. And I went in behind them, kept away from them. They were fishing, casting one way. So I kind of snuck around them, said hi to them. And as soon as I went around the corner from them, I caught 3 bass, like bang, bang, bang. And they were like, oh, bite must be picking up. But, I could have been maybe a little more sneaky about it, but I wasn't. I was like, yeah, I said, and to be truthful, Scotty, for about 20 minutes before I caught those fish, we got a little ripple on the water, right? Like the wind just started to blow a little bit. And if anyone who's fished Long Point Inner Bay, it is gin clear. I would argue there's probably not many lakes in Ontario that are as clear as Long Point Bay. And it's all shallow. It's all less than 5 feet, less than 6 feet, a good chunk of it. And so you have to, on these days, wind is your friend. A lot of us don't like wind. I like a little bit of wind. When it's a ripple, they are hard to catch. But when you get a little ripple, and I heard them talking, they're like, oh, maybe they're going to turn on. And I said, it's the wind. It's the wind. And they asked me, what are you throwing? And I'm like, a swim jig. And they're like, what's a swim jig? And I said, do you got a spinner bait? I'm like, picture, cut the arm off. And that's a swim jig. Yeah. So I'm like, do you have any small spinner baits? They're like, yeah. And they were digging through their box. And I ended up having a couple conversations with them, because now we were kind of hopscotch each other a little bit. And that's fine. Big area. I wasn't at a tournament or nothing, but it was great just to have a conversation with these guys, So it happens, man. It happens. And it's how you look at it. Now there's other situations where if I'm first on a shoreline and I'm going down the shore, and this happens with Trevor and I all the time, and he's my son, I can't get mad at him, but we've learned to hopscotch each other. So if we want to fish the same shore and we're both let's say largemouth fishing, which we've been doing a lot of recently, you know, we almost have to have a plan. I'll be like, hey, you fish this point, I'm going around to the next point, because I don't want to fish where he's fished. It's like getting backboated, right? So I think in Jordan's situation too, and I mentioned this backstage, he won that event frog fishing, and he was very secretive about how he won that event. He told others after the fact, and on Bass Talk Live, he admitted that what he did was, and it's very I don't want to say it's sneaky, but it's kind of clever. I'm going to call it clever. So tip to everyone out there, if you're ever going into here, I got tackle over my desk. So if you're ever fishing a frog, okay, like Jordan was fishing with the Berkeley Swamp Lord, he's making those long casts, and what he found was during practice is if he went in after the fish, he would spook the rest. So let's say there was a pocket in those weeds, and it was all hydrilla mats, very, very dense vegetation in Florida. So that frog would land in the hole, and he'd catch a fish. And in some of the footage, like he's craning these fish, like full on craning them. He doesn't want to go in after them because he found that if he did take the boat in there with his trolling motor and plow through the weeds, he would only catch one fish, maybe two out of that hole. He would spook the rest. And so he relied on his tackle to bring the fish towards him. Now, as anglers, we can figure this out, right? Because I go into a little cut and I see it all the time. I'll go into a cut on a nice day. And let's say we're just smashing fish that day. And I'll pull into a cut, and I'm like, there's all little trails from frogs coming through, and there's holes where someone caught a bass because it grabbed their frog, and it actually made a wide trail. And I'm like, I'm not going to fish here right now. I might come back there later, but maybe not even that day, you know? So it's a good spot. Take note. But frog fishing is a funny way that you can leave evidence of that you've been there, because that's what frog fishing does, especially on those algae mats, like what I think a lot of anglers will call that cheese, that sort of fermenting algae on the top. And frogs are great baits for fishing that stuff, but also it leaves trails for folks to let you know what you've been doing.
It's interesting you say that, because if you look at the video a little bit further in detail, you can tell that Jordan is on the move towards that angler. And to your point, where he's not wanting to be right in the cover, he's trying to sit back and let the fish come to him. To me, this is almost the ploy. And I guess someone could argue that perhaps he's elongating this conversation for the sake of covering as much water as he can to get through all this cover to spook whatever fish this guy could possibly catch. Is that a theory?
I think it might be more, he's like, this is my area, I'm going to push you out. Right. So he might not be, he's not trying to keep that guy from fish. Like, he's not trying to scare fish away from that particular boat. He's trying to just generally keep him out of that area. He's like, get out of here. These are my fish. That's how I see Jordan's posturing by moving towards that other boat. And you can see that boat right there, the other boat starting to move away. Right.
Exactly.
So, you know, and it's a hard call. It's public water. People can do what they want. But I hear horror stories all the time about this kind of stuff, and I'm not really sure what is the right answer, or there's probably lots of wrong answers, but we don't have a right answer for this, right? And I think that I don't know. I think it's etiquette and judgment. And you know, I ran into a Karen on Saturday or Sunday. They didn't like me near their area. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I have to deal with this. And it was because I was too close to their cottage, and I was probably like, I couldn't even cast this 3/4 ounce frog and hit their cottage. And I could throw this thing 120 feet, 130 feet. I'm like, and I wasn't going to fish there. I was hugging the shore, going to another area of the marsh, and they were right there. So I don't know, I just put my smile on and see you later. No problem. I'm not going to fish there. I'm going over here, but I got to get there. Right. So, yeah.
100%. And the Karens are starting to multiply. As I said, we see, unfortunately, far too many, videos and examples of folks that are just a little super sensitive to their property, and I can appreciate what the value of some of these docks and some of the boats and the vinyl and what it costs to fix stuff. Like, I totally get it. I see it from both sides. But if you are one of those owners and you're recognizing that someone is taking care and they're properly casting, and they're not just casting wildly, and you can tell they're not a bunch of hillbillies, that they're actually doing it the right way. Be selective on how you approach that. I think that's some of the best advice that I can give. I don't know much else, but I tell you, you and Jim have certainly hit it on the nail on how to approach that. I didn't upload the article, but I really want to thank you for sharing that forward-facing sonar issue that was happening down in Mississippi. They did a study, and I did glance through the article, and it was interesting that they did a 2-year study about forward-facing sonar, and they figured in those 2 years that anglers' rates of catch increased by 70%. And the author goes on to say that it may have been even higher. What has happened is they've changed the catch limits.
Yep.
Genius.
Perfect. Like, isn't that what management is supposed to be? Right? Like, you know, and be progressive if we can. I know the wheels of government can spin very slowly at times, but here we are in an age where information is readily available. And in that case, they had new information. And I think what's great about that particular example, and they were talking about mostly crappies, right? So with crappie, forward-facing sonar and crappie anglers is way ahead of bass anglers.
Yeah.
They've been using forward-facing sonar longer. They're probably it's more refined with crappie anglers. Crappie are easier to target because they school up so tightly around their cover, whether it be docks or whether it be brush piles, and they want to protect the fishery. And I think it's great. It's a good article, and I expect to see more articles like that coming out. It's not meant to be controversial. It was done in a defendable scientific way. So, you know, and there's holes in all studies. I'm the first one to tell you that when we do studies, you as a researcher, you have to admit where there's fault, but this is the best information we have with the information available, right? Yeah. And I think they did a good job, and I hope to see more of that. And I hope that other jurisdictions, other agencies are following this, and I know they are, and I hope that they learn, that they can learn from others and think about what that means. You know, I think that in Canada, we have a lot less anglers per capita than the US because our population is smaller. So I think forward-facing sonar regs and for the impacts, if I'm going to call it that in quotes, of forward-facing sonar, we may not see that for a while, but we'd be wise to watch our neighbors to the south and how they deal with regulations and forward-facing sonar. Just kind of as an asterisk.
And to your point, you know, I don't want to say a lot of the fisheries because I don't really know, but I do know a good majority of the fisheries down there. It could be considered a put and take, where, you know, when it comes to preserving and managing the resource, it isn't like it is up here where we really rely on natural reproduction. Down there, I mean, let's face it, you had to go to any of the hatcheries that they have down there. It is just vast. As far as the eye can see, there's bell jars, there's trays, there's everything. And they are constantly putting in millions on top of millions of fish. So when they are changing their catch limits, I have to 100% agree. We really have to take notice because we don't have that luxury up here.
Yeah, like, you know, we don't have, so for example, like we don't have crappie fisheries like in Mississippi has. But, you know, we can look at, but we have perch fisheries, right? And we know forward-facing sonar is very popular with ice anglers. So ice angler catches are going to go up potentially, you know, and I know that even there's been recent reports published and looking at ice angler effort, and I think you're going to see more of that happening. And I think we're trying to keep, the agencies are trying to keep our finger on the pulse of this. And so I think we just have to be more aware. What's George saying? We also have less productive. Yeah, that's true. Less productive waters and fish populations that can't take as much exploitation. Also because we rely in Ontario, Canada especially, more so on natural reproduction than other jurisdictions. So our fisheries are, and because of our lakes are healthier, our fisheries are ecologically healthier, but it also means that in the long run, they're more fragile because we rely on natural reproduction to keep our fisheries sustained. So no, that's a great point, George, for sure.
It's interesting that, you know, we're so worried about forward-facing sonar when it comes to the amount of harvest that we're going to be taking. Yet to me, with these changes, and at least it has spawned a change, it's a positive. We have to look at it as a positive. It's going to make us more ethical anglers because we're going to be following rules. Now, of course, you know, they have to be looked after, and, you know, how do you patrol it with the resources that we have? It's a great argument, not one that I can offer a dog in that fight. But needless to say, you know, if anything, we can look at forward-facing sonar as a positive because it's creating change, and it's putting the onus on us as anglers to be more ethical and just follow the darn rules.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I think that, you know, a lot of this comes across as negative, and I don't think, let's take the Randy Blockets out of this equation, right?
Amen.
Like, a lot of this is what is in the industry now. The manufacturers are not taking this away, and let's embrace it. Who wants to catch more fish?
Yeah,
like we all do, right?
Amen.
So I think we just have to be aware. And I think, yeah, you're right, George. Like, creel limit reductions are the least effective method of harvest control for heavily exploited fisheries. So, you know, and this is the thing, I even saw this on Saturday. Like, everyone's keeping fish, man. Everybody. Like, I think I'm the only guy that released a bass yesterday on Long Point.
Oh, is that right?
Like, oh, dude, they're harvesting, and this happens. This is why I've had anglers reach out to me that are not from the area, and they've seen pictures, like, you know, the Port Burwell pictures.
Yeah.
You know, okay. Well, there's pictures like that in Long Point of smallmouth bass, like lined up like wood that are come. Oh yeah, this has been going on for decades, and that's the big reason why they have a sanctuary in Long Point. It's one of the longest running fish sanctuaries. In a fish sanctuary in Long Point is basically half the Inner Bay. And just so folks that don't realize, the Inner Bay of Long Point is about 5 kilometers across and about 5 kilometers long. So one half of that is blocked off. You can drive your boat through it. You cannot wet a line in there. You cannot fish at all. And that's from Mother's Day till bass opener. And that's to protect the bass fishery because there's so much pressure from anglers harvesting. And they honestly, Scotty, it's 6 bass, and they know their limit, and they're going to, if they catch one, they keep it. Largemouth and smallmouth. Smallmouth is preferred, but largemouth goes too. So it's a highly pressured fishery. Yeah, very much.
See,
so.
Here I thought it was more just on the American side that they love their bass for table fare, but interesting. And Richard, yeah, maybe it is the price of food. Who knows? Who knows what's spawning that?
No, these guys have been doing this for years. And what's funny is so being in a small town, I know lots of folks, and you get the gas station, the grocery store, whatever. And anytime someone's got a fishing question, I'm usually the first person they ask if I see me at the grocery store or the gas station. And their number one complaint, they're not catching enough bass. What can they do to catch more? And I know they're keeping all the bass they're catching. Like, this isn't going back. They're all eating. I joke, there's too many fish tacos being served in Norfolk County. And that's not just Norfolk. It's people coming from Brantford, London. It's a popular fishery for a good chunk of sort of south central Ontario, right?
Right.
And but it's a lot of it is bass harvest. It's very big here, and people keep their limits on a regular basis. So, but the bass fishing is still good. That tells us that at least that sanctuary probably allows those fish a chance to spawn uninterrupted, a good chunk of them. But I'd like to see the limits drop, but I don't think that will happen with bass in Ontario. Because as walleye populations have dropped, this is across Ontario. Walleye populations in generally are in a decline. And so anglers are switching to eating bass because they're more readily available. So I don't see bass numbers dropping off. I'd like to see the inland numbers drop down a bit too, because Lake Erie can at least kind of sustain itself. But boy, the inland zones, those fisheries are finite. They're small, like reservoirs and ponds. and taking 6 fish out of those places, that's a major shot to the population. So,
well, it's interesting you say that, because Bill says the same thing, and I was under the same mindset. You know, I do remember as a kid eating bass out of our lake, up at the cottage in the halibut area. And, you would always look to make sure they didn't have worms, and that was the biggest thing. You got excited when you didn't see the black spots, because we're gonna get to eat that tonight. But to your point, Bill, growing up, I would have to say, the Americans did a fantastic job demonstrating catch and release, because I kind of thought the same thing. Sean does bring up a good point, though. If people don't harvest bass, then the fishery may get worse. We won't ever get big fish, and if there's a gazillion small ones competing for food, like sanctuaries, but harvesting is necessary to a certain extent.
So, Sean, you make a good point, and there's been new research on this in the U.S. where, Gene Gilliland from Bass, who's the conservation director for BASS, him and I have had lots of conversations about this, and you'll find that in some fisheries, all of this catch and release has been a problem because they're full of smaller fish. And so you'll see what we need is, and it's really hard to do this, Scotty, because it's hard to manage lake by lake. We do things in a zone to make it easier for everyone in a large zone, and the same in the U.S. But literally, some lakes are very different than others. And across a large state, the lakes can vary, like even geologically. Like you can have shield lakes in the north part of the state and like prairie lakes in the south, like in Minnesota. And those lakes function differently. How can you manage them differently?
Yeah.
But I think in the end, that eating a few fish does help. I think in a big lake like Lake Erie, I think that it's always better to eat the smaller ones because the larger ones are the good breeders. But I think that the impact of keeping too many large fish is seen in inland lakes more, for sure. But keeping fish is good. There was one picture that a couple anglers sent to me, and I'm not going to name any names because these are guys that we know, but they're very concerned. Like, Jay, look at these photos of all these dead bass. And it's kind of like that Jordan video we just watched. And I'll explain. So a buddy down here, he runs a charter. And around here, they're called party boats. Okay, the old party boat charter. So it's like you got a big open deck. You got room for like 20 guys, and they hang their rods over the side. And the captain basically has a couple buckets of shiners and some coolers. And you party fish, right? And you just dangle your minnow over the side with a piece of split shot, and you catch bass. And he drives around the bay. And it's honestly, it's fun. Scotty, it is a lot of fun to do because it's both the only way. It's like ice fishing. I don't know. It's kind of like ice fishing where you can all socialize in one spot. And that's why boat fishing kind of sucks, right, Scotty? Because we're all into separate boats. Yeah. Anyway, so this particular photo that was sent to me of the dead bass was part of a post that I found where this charter captain took out 15 or 20 guys. The youngest guy, I think, was 70 years old. Some of the guys were in their 80s. And this was like their one day of the year to go fishing. Like, they're out there with their canes and their walkers and they're slaying the bass. It's like, in that context, like, what do you say? Like, they're a citizen of Ontario. They paid their license. Let them eat, right? But the ones that we have to worry about are the ones who go out and they keep their limit every time they go, or even twice a day if they go out, because they don't understand what possession limits are, right? So, sorry, there are only possession limits for clarity, but they think it's every time you go out, you can keep 6, not just once you have 6 in your freezer per person, you need to stop, right? So yeah, so there you go, George. Like, exactly. Like, there's no rationale for it. Why is it 6? Because it's half a dozen. It's like, it goes back to colonial times, right? Please, sir, can I have 6 bass? Yes, you may. Right?
So true. Now, Sean did ask a question, and I have to say that I don't believe I'm aware. There might be some with the inland lakes, but the bigger lakes, I don't believe there is a slot limit for bass. Am I right or am I wrong?
Not in Ontario that I'm aware of for bass. And there are in the U.S., though. In the U.S., a lot of the lakes have slots. And some of it's quite confusing. If you listen to some of the elite tournaments and you read some of the rules, I want to say even on Smith Lake recently, like if you wanted to keep a smallmouth, actually, Tennessee River is a good example because that's where Gussie won the Classic.
Mm-hmm.
All the smallmouth had to be over 18 inches to be kept. So what they're saying is that so you've allowed those fish to spawn and breed, after they're 18 inches, they can be harvested. So
Right.
in a bass tournament, they're allowed to catch and release those 18 inches. They'll bring them in a live well, right? But largemouth on that river, I think, are 15 inches and spots are 12. So different lakes have different slot limits for different species of bass. But in Ontario, we don't have that. We have a couple of zones where the dates differ. So there's opening for smallmouth, opening for largemouth in zone 20. And it's funny how in that situation, there was worry about how are anglers going to know the difference between smallmouth and largemouth. But I'm like, at least we can do that. And I'm not saying everyone knows, but as anglers, we can at least be that responsible. Because in the U.S., they have much more complicated regulations than that. And we're just talking know the difference between a largemouth and a smallmouth. And I think from what I've heard, for the most part, there's been a lot of compliance with that. And but I think what you're going to see is I think you're going to see, and this goes back to Sean's earlier comment, I think we're going to see more sanctuaries coming into play. And by identifying these sanctuaries, basically, and the sanctuary is you can't wet a line in there at all, except during the closed dates. And I think that's going to be important. And I think on some smaller lakes, that's going to irritate some people. But those sanctuaries are to protect anglers from themselves, right? Because collectively as a group, we should not be in charge of managing our fisheries. That's for sure.
100%.
Right.
And I'll sum up this this whole discussion with what George has said. However, I intend to support creel reductions over other possible regulations, because if you aren't catching your limit now, you aren't really giving up anything by reducing the creel. Interesting point. That's an interesting point.
Well, you're catching your limit is your measure of success. Like everywhere I go, I got my limit. I didn't get my limit. Buddy got his limit, and like they're literally counting the fish in the cooler when they're talking to me at the ramp. Like limit is a measure of success, and it's kind of like a social norm that we need to change maybe in the angling world.
100%.
That you don't need to catch your limit, right? So
George just mentioned Lake of the Woods has a seasonal 305 meter size limit in Ontario. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So
there we go. I stand corrected. Well, as I said, Jay, what outside of beating the heat and staying cool, what are you up to these days?
Well, I gotta share a picture, Scotty, if I can. So these guys, look at these monsters.
Woo. So
these two turkeys have been out fishing like maniacs, and I've been working too much. That look on my face was that's a 19-inch bass that I'm holding up, and I'm like, that picture with the text message was, "Thanks for saving me one, guys." Like that particular day, and you can see that's a sunset or that's a sunrise, but I've had sunset pictures that look the same. Like we have been chasing the sun down here for a week and a half, and we've been, I don't know what it is, dude. We get out there and we just can't come in until dark. And in fact, if I want to go fishing around here this time of year, the ramps are so busy that I left here on my solo trip Sunday morning. I was gone at I was leaving the ramp at quarter to 6, like pulling away from the ramp. So I drove. It's 40 minutes to the launch, and then 15 minutes to get unloaded kayak. You got to set everything up. Yeah. So that sunrise picture was me on Sunday morning, solo mission it out in the middle of nowhere. But that picture from the two boys and that one of me, that was from last Thursday. And Trevor slept over at Owen's house. They dropped Owen's mom off at work in the morning. They took the kayaks to Long Point. They fished all day. And then, so my schedule is usually like I work till 3, so I'm home at 4. And Trevor's like, "You want to come fishing tonight, Dad?" And I'm like, "You've already been out there. This is about 1:30. I'm like, "Dude, you've been out there since 6:30 or 7. You still want to go out?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right, I'll come meet you." So I drove down to Long Point after work. I think I was at the house for 30 seconds to refill my water bottle because all the fishing gear was still in the van. Drove down, we launched, and we fished until 9. Around there, the mosquitoes get bad right at dark, and there's nothing worse than tying your boats down with. And I know that, and I find the bite isn't really good right at dusk. It's about a half hour before. Then the bite, you don't tend to catch any more fish right at dusk where we are. So, and I think it's also my brain's like the mosquitoes are coming, because I had nothing worse, dude, than driving back home 40 minutes with a vehicle filled with biting mosquitoes.
Amen.
That's what happened.
Amen. 100%.
But yeah, no, we've been doing great. It's been lots of largemouth fishing. Trevor got out smallie fishing with Kate and her dad yesterday. So he's like, I got invited to go smallie fishing. And I'm like, well, I'm going largie fishing. So that's why I went solo, because he made plans without dad. So, but him and Kate and Kate's dad, Chris, they really got into some really big smallmouth out on Erie yesterday. So him and I were both slaying fish yesterday. It was a lot of fun. So, and we're hoping to get out tomorrow after work. I say after school. He's not in school anymore. Because of that hurricane coming, man. That rain's gonna screw things up for a while around here. So I'm gonna try and get out tomorrow after work and probably till late. And then Wednesday and Thursday, all that rain and wind. And then I think the lake's going to be a mess. Even Friday, the weather looks great, but it's going to be a massive post-front condition on Friday. So yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully we'll get out on the weekend, but it's been great, dude. And I got to do a video and bring it to you on the show. I've got about 40 hours now in the new Doss King Zeus, Darren Ford's like big Cadillac kayak. Dude, for a big guy like me, it's honestly, I love it. I was out yesterday in a good 2-foot chop coming in, and other than the Sea-Doo that passed me in the no wake zone that I almost big Jim'd him, if you know what I'm saying. That's another conversation to have. Sea-Doos, I know they kick a bit of a wake in a no wake zone, but there's this wonderful thing called neutral. It's like you just can't go passing people in a no wake zone. And I'm in a kayak for Christ. He's passing other people too. He's like, I can't go any slower. I'm like, dude, neutral. Just take it out of gear for a second. That's what everyone else has to do.
Amen.
And this is why I love fishing on nice days, but I hate fishing on weekends around here, man. I hate it because the boat ramps, I pull up and I don't know if I'm going to be there 5 minutes or 55 minutes. But anyways, I had a good day of fishing yesterday. So, and we'll get back out this weekend.
Well, we look forward to the pictures and, of course, all the videos and all the content that you guys share. Because, as I said, we can't thank you enough for allowing us to live vicariously through the Barnucz family.
Love it. Thanks, Scotty. See you guys next week.
Absolutely. We'll have yourself a great week, Jay, and thanks again for all your time and all your efforts, man. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Right on. We got Moose and a special guest coming up right after this.
Oh, there's one right there.
The one and only.
What's up?
Moose Bertew.
What's happening?
I don't even want to say it. Don't even want to say it. But yeah, that's the look that I had when I saw you. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Right? Look at that. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Right? They call me Moose Kringle or Mustafa Claus.
Comment. I said, what is this? Father Christmas? Like,
or Hulk Hogan, one of the two.
Did you dye it, or is is it been dyed before, or like?
So we, the children, we and my lovely wife, we bleached it. Yeah, it was bleached, and then we dyed it like a gray color, and it sort of made me look like I was dying. So we re-bleached it, and a little gnome. We re-bleached it, and the white in my beard lifted. This is the term, right? Lifted really nicely. The black, on the other hand, left like a little yellow behind because it didn't lift. So then we re-bleached it. So this is a third bleach, and my skin at this point was on fire, Scotty.
I can imagine.
And so I burnt my skin, and I said, you know what? No more bleaching, no more nothing. Let's just keep it the way it is, and we'll revisit once I've healed. So now that I've healed, we're going to make an attempt to go to this white right here. You see the white?
Yeah.
This is kind of like a yellowish tint. Looks like I've been smoking darts for 30 years.
Yes.
Well, it's getting there. It's getting there.
I said to Jim when we saw the video together, I said, Jim, maybe he's feeling bad for us. Maybe we look too old and he's trying to catch up to make us feel bad about ourselves.
It's just for shits and giggles. Why not? I don't have any hair up here, so I might as well do it down here, right? So, it's just for fun. It's just for fun.
That is so well. Listen, dude, it's been a while since we've been able to talk to you and run across what you've been up to. But what have you been up to?
A lot. It's been a busy season. I was listening in on Jim's 2 cents about crankbaits and Jay's 2 cents about boat launches, and then the topic that you brought up of people being too close or cutting in. I think every situation's different. So.
So what's your take? While we're on that, what's your take on that video?
Oh. So you see the distance?
Yeah.
He's a professional angler fishing for hundreds and thousands of dollars points. He ain't fishing for $1,000. He ain't fishing for $2,000. He's fishing for a good chunk of change. So a zone is a zone is a zone is a zone. There are rules that are, unwritten rules that are put in place. You don't cut someone off. You don't come into their space. I would have to agree with them. Like, listen, man, if you're not in contention for first, if you're not on winning fish and it's day 2, I'm on winning fish, I'm, favored to win or place, and, you're not. I can't see the boat that he's referencing or the person, but I don't see it being, see the size of the space, the area. I personally don't see it being a problem. Now, if he's within a cast of me, is that?
I think I would name Dave. That's all. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to go too far into finding out who it was, because it's something that I wanted to attack the guy. I thought it'd be a great learning exercise for those who maybe do club tournaments, maybe the folks out there that want to do tournaments and they don't know. I don't know.
We just recently had this conversation at our club tournament. Our club operates in a different way altogether. Like, the way we operate as a group of anglers is we want everyone to catch fish. We want everyone to have a good time. There was a situation that came up last year, and there was a guy that was new to the club, and you could hear him from one end of the lake to the other. And then I think about the situation that went down the previous year, and it was probably the funnest day out on the water that we had all ever had. So there was a guy, I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a guy who was on fish and he was doing well. He caught his 5 and thought, you know what? I'm going to check in on these guys. It's a clubby. This is what a clubby's about. Learning, sharing, having a good time. It's a club tournament. A derby with a group of gentlemen and ladies that enjoy the same thing. He called us all up and said, hey, if you're not on fish, I found them. And there's so many here that we could all have a good time. Because listen, I can give you a zone. I can give you a spot, but it's the spot within the spot that will catch the fish. It's the spot within the spot with the right bait that will catch the fish. So a lot of the times in a clubby, if there's a guy it's different when you're cutting someone off or you're fishing around an island and all of a sudden you both meet, or one guy's on one side of the shoreline, another guy's at the other end of the shoreline, and you're going along and it's completely different if a guy tells you, hey man, like, you know, I'm really onto something here. Can you give me some space? 1, 2, there's this unwritten rule about 2, 3 casts, 4 or 5 casts, but if you know a guy, if it's a 2-day event and you know a guy is in, you know, the top whatever it might be, and he could potentially win, and you're on you're in 54th, and there's no way you're going to catch 40 pounds of fish to, you know, win it. Leave. Let it be. Hey man, didn't know this was your zone. Congrats. Good luck. I'm going to go try to upgrade and, you know, find my way to a pay spot. It's happened to me a couple of times. It's happened to me with Eric Luzak on twice, actually, come to think of it, on Balsam and on Simcoe, where we were fishing very similar water. Day 1, I just couldn't nail the fish. He did. And, you know, we were a cast away from one another. First spot, I was there first. He was there second. Second spot, he was there first. I was there second. We were a distance from each other. But it wasn't an issue. It was 2 guys who were fishing the same zone, no problems. I noticed it with my fishing partner on day 2, because here we are, and he pulls in, and I was like, you know what? Let's pack her up and head out, because the fish that he's looking for are not going to help us, but they sure as hell will help him. He'll go from 4th to 1st. We're not going to go from 60th to 5th. It's not going to happen. Period. So let's go. So common sense plays into it. Clubbies, depending on the clubby and the people, like we literally, I'll tell you who it was, Dan Gooch. He's just that type of guy. Called us up. We were on Lake of Bays. Boys, you guys catching? No, we're struggling. And there was a handful of boats struggling. Well, I found them. Come over here. Here, there. And he pointed at 4 or 5 different spots. There were 6 boats there, and we were having a blast. Everybody was catching fish, having a good time. Can't remember who won that day, but that's, to me, in a clubby situation, that's a great time. That's a wicked time. During a derby, keep your distance. You know, even, I found this during pre-fish. Everybody finds everything during pre-fish. Yeah. Keep your distance. If you don't cut in on someone. If you happen to meet up with someone, respectfully go in the opposite direction. If you didn't see someone, again, respectfully, you either go around, give them the distance. It depends on what they're doing and how they're fishing. Yeah. If a guy's hopping dock to dock, then don't cut him off and dock to dock. Go around him, and away you go. I don't know. There's just so many different situations.
Well, I immediately thought of the situation we got into at Canada, U.S. with that other boat that we were fishing the same area. They were struggling to catch fish, and we were showing them how it was done. It got to the point where we got so close at one point that we literally, I believe, throwing plastics over to them, pointing to the 10 feet in front of your boat, cast right there.
Every derby is different. Everybody's different. Like in a situation like that, right? Like you said it best. You said it best. I love what you did with that. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're right. You're right. I mean, like, what would you have done?
Oh, in that situation, I don't even think I would have mentioned. I don't think I would have said a word. I really don't. But again, I'm not competing for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't have all this on the line, the stress and the anxiety and everything else. So I can't speak like you, who is a tournament angler, like Jim, like Jay, who's done tournaments. When I do them, I do it for fun. I do it to hang out with my buddy Moose or whoever it is that I'm fishing with. I don't do it for the sake of winning, cash prizes, because I got so many other people that count on me. So I can't speak like you can.
I think it depends on the derby. It depends on the situation. If I'm fishing away and a guy creeps up and hey man, how you doing? I know what you're up to, bud. I'm not stupid. Wasn't born yesterday. Yeah. If we roll in on someone around a corner accidentally, sorry boys, yeah, no worries, no fish here anyway. Or yeah, no, we're on something. Maybe go try the other. Like, it just depends on the situation. And again, every angler is different. I know a couple of big names that they don't care. You can fish right beside me. I'm still going to outfish you. It's a competition. So this goes back to what I was saying before, like weeks ago. First, second, third, done. You know, so I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to do my thing. If you're in my space and I don't like it, I'm going to let you know. And if you leave, great. Is there anything else that can be done about it? Not really. 100%. In that situation with Jordan, it sucks. But depending on who that guy was, where that guy was in the standings, how far he was, sometimes we as anglers, if we're having a bad day and it's day 2, and we think we're on something and someone comes in, it's an excuse for us to vent. I don't know the situation. Would I have said anything to the guy and be like, yeah, I might have thrown out yo, I'm onto something. Can you back off? But a lot of the times in a derby, come on in. Here's what I'm using. You guys aren't catching. Here's try this.
100%. Sean's got the right idea. If they got sandwiches, I'm over there. Jay 100% agrees. But our special guest that's in the lobby here, he'd like to weigh in. He just sent a message in the private chat. So let's bring in the one and only.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. What's up, Joe?
Hey, guys. What's happening?
How are you, buddy?
I'm just enjoying the show.
Yeah, great to see you, as always, my friend. You're
you too, Scotty.
But I got to ask, being a tournament angler, and you've been doing it for years, I'd love to hear your take, because I don't have the time on the water like you have as a tournament angler to have a dog in this fight or even have a true opinion. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Moose kind of nailed it on the head. Like, there's way too many variables to have an opinion on any video you see on the internet. That is first and foremost. If you're an armchair coach watching, dramatic fishing videos between anglers, just don't voice it. Don't think about it, because there's way too many variables for anybody to ever understand. And when you're fishing, and with the exception of Elite Series events, I've fished just about everything. I fished Opens, I fished Toyotas, I fished International, World Championships. So I've been around other countries that are trying to, Team Mexico at the Pan Americans, they sent blockers to run interference on us, Team Canada, because we were winning. Yeah, I got a buddy on the Mexican team that didn't know half the team, and he told me after, he said, man, they were playing dirty pool because they knew we were on 2 really specific zones that fished. I mean, there were 30 feet of water on these rocky shorelines, and you had very small windows to catch them. But I've seen it, man. I've seen every bit of it. I've been cut off while I was guiding by an Elite Series pro practicing, cut me right off, idled around where my customers couldn't even make a cast. I had a fella in Chesapeake Bay pull right in on me. He drove by me practicing on this one spot, and he pulled in, and I've got a saying when I see this stuff happen, like at those higher levels, there's a huge fundamental difference between, a club derby like Moose was talking about, and, a monetary team event, a one-day team event for a purse. Like maybe you're fishing a CSFL or a shootout and you're fishing for $5,000 and the stakes are high for you. There is a massive fundamental difference between, that recreational level of tournament fishing and those top tier levels. I've fished Canadian Open beside Chris and Corey, and Brian Hughes and Cal Clemson. We've all shared the same water, and we've been within a cast of each other, and nobody says a word. Why? Because you better be better at catching them. If those boys are on the same fish as you better be better at catching them than they are.
That's what competition is all about.
It is. And you know what? There's been a lot of different rules that have come through tournament trails over the years, and 50 feet and this and that. And like when we were in Arkansas, they had us bring was it Arkansas? Where were we? No, Portugal. They wanted everybody to bring range finders. So if anybody got too close to you, you could have it documented how close they were to you, because that was one of the rules internationally. But when you're fishing in those big multi-day open level events, you know, and the stakes couldn't be higher, because these are guys that are fighting for a spot in the Elite Series. They're fishing for 60 grand US. They're fishing for a spot in the Classic. You know, everybody has it in the back of their mind that they can win. You know, on some of those fisheries, like a tidal fishery, an hour, you know, you could sit there with nothing in your live well until 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden you've got 25 pounds in 30 minutes. So you're never out of the game. So like anglers that have made that kind of commitment to their craft, they've made that kind of personal investment financially, emotionally, physically. Those guys, they're fishing at the highest stakes possible. And, you know, tensions run high, and, you know, not everybody is as eloquently spoken as my buddy Moose is. So, I mean, you know, we're all just, you know, rednecks and hockey players and passionate people. When we're on the water, it doesn't change, right? Like, I've had it out with guys on the water, and to be honest with you, I couldn't even remember names, faces, times it happened. You know, and I've always had it in my mind that, like, I find my own fish. And I spent 20 years, I didn't come up with a fishing family. I learned all this on my own. And I spent the last 20 years, like, figuring out what works for me. And it's a hard game, man. It's hard, because it's like, those guys are doing something different, and there's new baits out and there's new techniques. I'd be honest with you, there's like, as long as I've been doing this, I can probably only tie like 3 different knots, because there's so many different knots, and I just learned how to tie the FG knot a few years ago. So I mean, the game is evolving, it's changing. There's a lot of younger guys in the game now. I got cut off like legit in the Bronzeback Cup. I was by myself, and I was fishing on Thora, and the Haggertys pulled in, and they pulled in where they wanted to go, nowhere near me, and we started working towards each other. Which, when Moose talked about the kind of the unwritten rule, if you're fishing a zone, that's usually a pretty good, you know, if you're good and you know where you're fishing, it's usually a zone. There's usually a starting point, and there's usually an ending to that zone. There's somewhere in between, there's fish. So if you're around the same fish, it is good etiquette to maybe give a good berth and maybe work towards your competitor and have small talk and move on. But this boat flew in between the two of us. I couldn't believe it. Was like, came in on pad 30 feet from me, somebody in the tournament, and just started fishing. Like, just got up and started giving her, went right by me on the inside. And even the Haggertys were like, holy, that was ballsy. And this was, you know, somebody newer to the sport, I'm going to say, and a newer team, you know, that's kind of coming up. And I didn't gain anything by saying anything. I wouldn't have gained anything by saying, like, you know what, if they saw some fish here, guess what? I'm going to be better at catching them than they are. And I was that day. So, you know, and I was by myself. So cut me off all they want. I still weighed a heavier bag.
There's so many different situations. I mean, the Bronzeback's a big event. You know, the Bronzeback's a big event. The Pro-Am, the Canada, the Canadian Pro-Am or whatever. The
Canadian Open.
Canadian Open. Thank you. That's a big event. But again, that's also an event where you're taking someone out that isn't in a boat all the time, that can't get out fishing all the time, that's just getting into and wants to get into tournament angling. So when something like that happens at an event like that, you explain it to them. If it's just you gotta know the people. There's a handful of people that you could talk to, and Scotty, talk to James Schultz, and Schultz will tell you, even Scotty will tell you, there's a handful of people out there that are very malicious, I guess, or very sneaky. We know what you're up to. If you're driving by me and you're staring at your graph and you got one hand on it, you're not paying no attention. You're either marking spots or you're side scanning to see what I'm fishing, or sure, man, go ahead. But like, if you pop in, you're in a 16-foot aluminum, and you and your girlfriend are in a boat, I'm not going to give you shit for coming in on me. I'm going to be like, hey, man, the fish are right over there. Enjoy. See you later.
I think you've got like, it's no different than anything else in life, right? There's no honor amongst thieves. Like we've got, it doesn't matter what the environment is, doesn't matter, you know, could be on a construction site, it could be in an office building. There's always going to be people that live in fear, you know, people that live with insecurities, and people that, I've seen it in fishing for 20 years, like guys, you know, that don't have their own stuff. I was in a tournament actually, and I will tell this story because I don't really care, because this guy burned bridges, and he, you know, from my understanding, he's been kicked out of a tournament trail. So as most of you know, I'm a fishing guide as well. I've been doing that for a very long time. So I run into this individual on Rice Lake. It's like the Wednesday before Andy's two CSFL August dates. He always has them on the same weekend in August on Rice Lake. And this fellow walked up to my boat and he's like, "Hey, how'd you do out there?" And, you know, and talk, and I was really happy. My customers had a great day. We caught a smallmouth over 6 pounds, which is very rare for Rice Lake, and 2 more that were like big 5s, and probably, you know, 15 to 20 to go with it. And I showed him some pictures, and he's like, "Oh man, was that over there where I drove by you?" And I was like, "You know, it was." Like, don't ask me. Like, come on.
As they're slowly snapping photos of what's on your front deck, like.
So he's like, "Oh, I'm like, listen, man, I'm not that guy. It's not my water. It's not my spot. I'll never be that guy on the water to say that's my spot, because I've seen these guys fishing these local one-day tournament trails that pull that shit, and they're like, you know, that's my hump or that's my zone. And they're, and I know of many personal examples of guys that are around us in the fishing community. And I don't care if they don't like me saying this or not. I really don't care. But there are guys that are very, very too much self-entitled. Anyways, I told this fella, I was like, "Listen, man, I don't own the water. Just use your head." Like, "Oh, are you fishing on the week?" "Yes, I am fishing on the weekend." "Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to fish the weeds kind of around there. And I thought I'd like look around a little bit." Like, "Listen, man, I'm not going to tell you to fish it. I'm not going to tell you not to fish it. I really don't care. If you do make a choice, and it's your choice, if you do make a choice to go over there, don't wreck it." "Oh, what do you mean?" I'm like,
if I'm there, let it be. If I'm not there, enjoy it.
I'm like, "Don't wreck it, man. Like, park your boat in 8 feet of water and don't be on 3 feet of water. Like, don't ruin it." So I get there, I'm in the second wave. So I get there kind of late, and I'm having coffee with Vita, and, you know, I'll give her a hug, and Andy's blasting boats off. So we jump in the boat and get out there, and I rip across the lake, and he's camped out right on it. I couldn't believe it. And I came in pretty hot, stood up, didn't say anything. Him and his partner are looking at their shoes. And I start fishing away, and I was like, "Morning, fellas. How's it going?" And I can see where he is. It's a very, very small area. And he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Joe. I'll leave." I'm like, "No, man, you don't have to leave. Damage is done. Might as well just stay and enjoy it." He's like, "Well, I'm like, what's your graph say? How deep are you?" He's like, "Oh, my GPS is all messed up." I'm like, No, what's your sonar say? How deep is your boat right now?" He goes, 3.2 feet. I'm like, might as well just hang out, man. Have a good time. I threw a tube jig behind his engine and caught a 4-pounder.
No way.
I boated a 4 behind him, and they kind of squirreled off. And his tournament partner knew me because I grew up in Bowmanville, and he knew me. His whole I know his whole family very well. His uncle owned a delicatessen in Bowmanville and made sandwiches for me since I was a little kid. And he sent me an email that night, and he was like, "Man, I got so much respect for you. I am so sorry. I was like sick to my stomach all day. He told me what he wanted to do. I told him not to do it, not to go there. Like, if you didn't practice there, don't go there." Now, there's the punchline. If you did not practice on a water and you show up there because somebody's on it, or you beep a waypoint, you're going to lose. You're going to lose in life. You're going to lose the tournament. You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to have any dignity. Nobody's going to respect you in this industry. Just do yourself a favor and spend some time on the water and figure it out. And that's as simple as I can put it. So
Great
You know?
Let's face it, there's no secrets anymore. There's no my spot, his spot, their spot. There is a zone, there is a sweet spot, there is a specific bait. But at the end of the day, if someone else is there, just give them the room. And once they've left, you want to fish it? By all means, we will go ahead and fish it. I left for a reason. I've either left because the fish aren't there, I've caught them all, or they'll be back. But while I'm there, don't bother me. That's tournament. During a derby, if I'm having some fun with some clubbies, it's a clubby. Like, that's what it's about. Guys, come on over.
Fun. Yeah, talk to each other. Enjoy the sport.
100%.
But yeah, there's just way too many variables. And if you see videos like that on the internet, and I did see that video, and I'll be honest with you, I heard you asking for opinions, Scotty. I think Jordan Lee should have put his head down and focused on catching them.
That's kind of what Jim said. That's exactly
what I think. I mean, the guy was far enough away. It doesn't matter now. That's what I perceive, right? What I perceive in the truth. Those guys might hate each other off camera. Yeah. There might already be animosity there that we don't know about. There's so many different variables. So, it's easy for us to sit back and watch videos on our feed and make a quick assumption. Like, Jordan Lee is a pretty good dude. I've met him a few times. I don't know who that was in the other boat. I think that video is pretty old now. It was a Major League Fishing deal.
Yeah.
And, Jordan's been back in the Elite Series for a couple of years now. So, I mean, old news. It happened.
Joe, to be honest with you, the whole reason that I wanted to use the video was it could have been any of us in that boat.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
The fact that we didn't know who it was makes it even more apropos for it to be used tonight. Because if I'm in that position and I've pissed a guy off, I want to know, well, wait a minute. Am I in the wrong here? Like, have I done something wrong? And I think for the sake of educating the masses who, whether they compete in tournaments or want to compete in tournaments, this was a great learning exercise. And
absolutely, there's a lot of young faces in the sport that haven't learned, and they might pull into an area oblivious of their surroundings, just looking at their graph, not realizing that there was another boat there. Like, I've done it. I've pulled in on an area and went, oh, somebody's sitting there. Like, moving on. So, it was a good one.
If there is one thing to be said, and I've seen it before, I don't know if Jason's come across this, kayakers versus boats, I think, is more of a piss fest than anything. I've seen it time and time again where there's a handful of people, they're in their kayaks, they're doing their thing, boat rolls in, and just feels entitled, like it's their spot. I'm in a tournament, you're in a kayak, and no.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the size of your vessel, give whoever, it doesn't matter, even if they're fishing off the dock, give them their space, let them do their thing, and just be respectful of other anglers. Period. Done. That's it.
My next question, of course, comes from Sean Quinn, and I'll have to say, no, Sean, I gotta clean myself up. Yes, Mr. Ford's voice is so unbelievably sexy and smooth. Well said, Shotter.
He is a beauty. Nice to see you, Sean.
Isn't he? But
I'm telling you, I don't know. You put my voice on Moose's beard. I wonder what kind of concoction that would be.
Well, we have AI now. We can make that happen, Joe. We can make that happen.
Can you do a face swap, Moose?
Absolutely. That's too funny. Reason why I wanted Joe to come on tonight was not only to give us his insight on that wonderful topic, but there's some big things happening. And if you guys haven't seen, and you will see a lot more from us, because Joe has involved us. He has involved me specifically. And I think there's going to be room for a lot more of you out there, all you fine folks, as it grows. I think it's not only an opportunity for Joe and the team, but all Canadian anglers. And Joe, I want to be the first to say, I know you've been at this a very long time. You have a vision, and it is slowly coming to fruition, and my hat is off to you. After what I saw last weekend at the Pro-Am, I was very impressed. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I want to thank you very much for everything that you and the rest of the boys behind the scenes have put in. So take it away.
Right on. Yeah, thanks, Moose. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride. For those of you who don't know what Moose was talking about, we're talking about the Canadian International Sport Fishing Association, which is the governing body that oversees Canada Bass and Canada Kayak. So we kind of oversee and facilitate the international teams that we put together to fish for Canada at international fishing competitions. Some examples have been the World Championships in Portugal. Italy's coming up in October. We've had a World Championships in Mexico. I believe the boys are down south on the kayak team right now, fishing in the Worlds. Italy's coming up for them. The Italy Worlds is coming up. They went to Arkansas and fished in the Pan Am for the kayak team. So CISA started in 2018. Bob Azumi invited a bunch of us to fish for Canada on Lake Okeechobee, and he was handcuffed with a time constraint. He had like 2 months to put a team together, so he started calling up the guys, and he's like, "Hey, who's got some Okeechobee experience? You know, who's gonna show up and show out and represent Canada on this international platform?" So we went and fished in the first Pan American Black Bass Championships at Okeechobee. And it was cool. We got to fish against John Cox and Scott Martin, and Roland Martin fished with Scott, and a bunch of Elite Series guys fished for USA. Mexico was there, Canada, Costa Rica, and it was a tremendous experience, and it just kind of blew up from there. So I won't go through the chronological timeline of all the events. We'll have to maybe do another one of these down the road. And I know I was on here with you guys maybe 2 years ago. We talked about World Championships in Mexico, but we've had a successful run. We've won gold medal at home in Cornwall. Bob Azumi and the guys hosted the Cornwall event, but the foundation for the organization really grew to something semi-sustainable and growing every day. And this year is very, very exciting because it's our turn to host the Pan American Black Bass Championship again, which we've chosen to go kind of off the beaten path, out of the norm. And we selected New Brunswick as our top host. And we're going to be fishing in the St. John's River, which we are the Canadian International Sport Fishing Association, which means we want to grow the sport all across Canada. If there's a bass, that's where we're going. If there's ice fishing, hopefully one day we'll get there too. I mean, these international federations, all these different delegations, the different countries around the globe, they all answer to FIPS and SIPSED, which are the two governing bodies for the international freshwater and saltwater sport fishing. So they host a large variety of tournaments, from saltwater, fly fishing, carp fishing, right across the globe. And fishing being the largest participation activity in the world, their mission is to make fishing an Olympic sport. At the turn of the century, I guess fishing was an Olympic sport. They had spear fishing and some other kind of fishing, but I guess it was a very popular thing, and it just kind of fizzled away. So whether I see it in my lifetime or not is kind of irrelevant at this point. A few of us got together, myself and Dave Chong and Phil Haggerty. There's a few of us in the beginning that stepped up and did the little bit of work to kind of keep the team floating, and a little bit of fundraising here and there. And we had some members come and go over the years, just like any other organization. And we had some ups and downs, and we just continued to grow because we saw something very special. I've been to a World Championships. I've held the Canadian flag in the back of a boat in a parade through a village in Mexico with a couple thousand people on the streets watching us. Like, one of the coolest things I've ever done. So we saw something really special, and yeah, Moose said I did. I had a vision, and I shared that vision with others, and we all put our heads down, and we built something pretty special, and you're going to see the fruits of our labor in New Brunswick. So we're very excited. The province of New Brunswick has stepped up in a huge way to support the event. Also, our host cities and town of Nakuik and the city of Fredericton, the capital city Fredericton, there are 3 hosts. The Big Axe Marina is where the event will take place, the fishing portion of the event, and the Delta in Fredericton is the host hotel. So that's where the closing ceremonies will be held, and the main banquet for the closing ceremonies, and that's where all the anglers will be, and that's where the boats will be parked in a big laydown area. And it's such a beautiful facility on the St. John River. It's a fairly new hotel. It's a conference center. We went there on a recon mission, and it was like a 3-tier patio with a bar going down to the river with a river view and a pool, and like spectacular. So we booked the Officer Square for our opening ceremonies. The dates for the tournament, everybody get your pens out, or just go onto the Canada Bass page and check out some of the stuff that's up. We've been doing some lives. The date is going to be September 25th to the 29th. The 25th and the 29th are like arrival days and leaving days, but the 26th, 7th, and 8th are the days that you be around. The practice day is the 26th. That's when all the anglers get one official practice day. So there'll be a lot of countries coming in before the tournament, but that's the day we do a blast off and a check-in, and then we have day 1 and day 2 of competition, and we'll have a big stage set up, and lots of media coverage. Outdoor Canada magazines just finished a piece on it, and Ontario Outdoors magazine, and we've been in contact with Bassmaster magazine. They're going to run something, so it's super cool. We've got a pretty big production company we've been working with, and there's a lot going on. It's I can't go through it all because it's pretty overwhelming. It's like, I always told myself I never wanted to run a bass tournament, and here I am running a bass tournament. But it's nice. We've got an amazing committee. I'll probably forget a few names, but like Tim and Tanya Fox. Tim is the mayor of Nakawik, and they're beautiful people. They took me and Brent in. And I don't want to forget about Brent. I talked about the predecessors, the guys that helped, in the beginning and build it up. Some of our founders like Azumi and Chong and Haggerty, but we brought Brent Valera in 2 years, and Brent's been on the team. Brent fished for Team Canada in Mexico, helped us win a gold medal. And Brent was newly retired from a high up government position. So we knew he was really good with a computer, and he's a cool dude. And he's really helped put Seesaw on the map in such a big way. Man, he's been the guy that's been able to take the vision and put it on paper. So yeah, we're a non-for-profit organization, and our mission is to support and grow competitive fishing within Canada. And our values are to support all of the grassroots fishing initiatives. That's how we achieve our mission. So, give us a like, follow us. The support's unreal. We had an awesome pro-am last week, like a kind of a semi-private corporate pro-am. It was a fundraiser. We'll be selling spots at that again next year. So, feel free to drop me a line or shoot Moose a line. And I'm pretty pumped. We got to bring Moose on board this year, and it's one of those things, we're all volunteers, and I know Moose is pulled in a lot. Moose, you're pulled in a lot of directions, bro. It's a hard thing to the timing was right to bring Moose in, and he's working with our media director, Adam Foster, who's been doing a tremendous job with video and traveling with the team and doing the camera work and a lot of the social media. So, we brought Moose in kind of in a consultant role, I guess you'd say, but I hope it grows into something more. And I'm just really, really excited. I'll be honest with you guys. I know there is a growing consensus around the competitive fishing scene in Canada that it's kind of getting stale. And, I know the tournament directors are working their butts off to offer a great product to everybody, and my hat's off to you guys. I mean, it's a thankless job. You're there to facilitate guys gambling. And, when that happens, I worked for Ontario Lottery Gaming and Security for like 10 years. So I know what that's all about. You just deal with disgruntled people all the time. So my hat's off to you guys, but stay the course. Please, tournament directors, if you are watching or you do get to see this, we do have your back. Trust me, we've got big things. We've got a 5-year plan laid out. We've got some huge things that is only going to benefit the Canadian tournament fishing scene, and it's only going to support all of these other, and not just the money trails, but also like OBN and CBAF. Like, those guys have a huge part to play, and we have so many capable tournament anglers that, I think given the right tools and the right path, they could be the next Corey, Chris, Gussie, or Coop. And I truly believe that. And I've got the, big news this year. We made some changes in how we select Team Canada. And this one's a huge one because I fought for this one for a couple years, and I saw the value in the partnership with these tournament trails. So it used to be an open qualifier. Like, you come, pay an entry fee, fish in the tournament, and if you finish in the top 8 or 9, you make Team Canada, right? The problem was we weren't getting the support that I would have liked to have seen, and I don't think we were supporting the tournament scene effectively. So how do we make change? So we changed our bylaws. We threw a motion down, and it voted on successfully that we will be sending out invitations to, if you finished in the top 10 in your respective tour and AOI, or if you have competed in the Opens or the Toyotas, like you registered for the EQs, you're a professional angler that's going there, putting your money where your mouth is, and you're going and you're throwing it all into the wind. I think you do qualify, like the Danny McGarrys, the Jamie Bruces. Those guys qualify for an invite for sure, because they're crossing the border. They're going down there to fish in some of the most grueling conditions against some of the best sticks in the world. And and if you finished AOI in your respective tour, top 10, you're going to get an invite to fish in the qualifier. So I've got a big list of teams, anglers, that I'm going to be sending invites. Our qualifier this year is scheduled for November 1st to the 3rd. I know it's getting kind of late in the year, but that way we're going to be on Quinny. That way we don't conflict with anybody. And that's one way that CISA is supporting all the other, tournament trails and tournament anglers, because it's not just about the tournament trail too. It's about supporting the anglers. The anglers, at the end of the day, the anglers are what make these tournament trails successful. If somebody's coming to the park to watch a tournament, they're not coming to watch a tournament. They're coming to watch the fish. They're coming to see the anglers who caught the fish. I think that needs to be on the forefront of all of our minds when we're talking tournament fishing, because it's just, it's so important. It has to happen. There's so many skilled anglers out there, and they're the marketing value for the tournament trails, the companies, the sponsors. They're the ones out there hustling the product, whether they're getting money or a discount, it doesn't matter. They're proud of their brand that they're creating, and they've got something to offer. So let's support these guys.
100%. And I'll tell you this, you couldn't have picked a better consultant, MC, or whatever hat Moose decides to put on than this gentleman, and kudos, Joe, for doing that. Second, New Brunswick, Rob Nickerson and his wife Ryan Thompson. We have so many CFNers out in the New Brunswick area that we've been able to promote, highlight, and bring to light the fishery that is the St. John's River in New Brunswick. So I'll tell you, great venue, great consultant, great idea, and it's great to hear that it's growing. That's fantastic news.
Yeah, and I forgot to even mention that Moose is going to be kind of our co-MC. He's going to be working with Jeff Wilson, who's the founder of the Striper Cup. He's a New Brunswick native. He's a New Brunswick edition personality. So Moose and Jeff are going to work together to bring you guys all the feeds. So it's actually really cool because we're working with a production company that has the ability to do live streaming. So we're going to hopefully use this same software that you guys are watching today, and we're going to run, we haven't figured out the details, but the growing consensus is there's going to be 2 live streams each day of competition. So you can wake up in the morning, have your coffee, and watch a live stream for an hour of, anywhere from 6 to 10 anglers fishing with some live coverage from other boats. And then the final day we'll have also in the afternoon, you'll have another 1 hour segment. And then on day 2, it'll be the exact same, but we'll probably focus more on teams that are in contention. And that way it's just it's a fun couple hours each day. It gives us an awesome product. And I just can't tell you guys how excited I am, because it's one thing to be passionate about something. It's another thing to see it come to life. And it is a very good feeling. I'll be honest with you. It's pretty cool. It's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of ups and downs. And
Can you see this becoming like, there's Canada bass, but why isn't it Canada fishing? Like, is there a, walleye side of things, and there's carp? I know there's carp fishing and cat fishing, and like, is there a world tour of walleye, or can there be?
Yeah. They every country has the ability to host and promote their own fisheries, right? Like, if we put together a walleye team to go and fish in the predator side of the international stuff, we would call them Canada Walleye.
Well, I will say this, as the MC of the NOWT, there are some incredible walleye anglers that we get to feature every Wednesday on the NOWT Power Hour that would be chomping at the bit to get involved on something that is more national, international, and even global. Because let's face it, walleye might have a different name over in Europe, but they are Xander. They're just bigger walleye, and there's a lot of potential there. Moose, to your point.
They do have an international event. So what I can suggest, Scotty, and this is, if you have anybody that you think might benefit in the multi-species community, that might be in a position that they could put a team together, or maybe come up with some form of a qualification process. Like, CISA is the governing body. Brent's the president. I'm the vice president. We've got a team of board of directors, and we oversee and will help support. So we're the ones that answer to the international federations that host these events. So yeah, we do want to send a team to the Predator in Europe, right? We want to send guys to Sweden to catch Xander for sure. We'd love to be able to do that, but we're only 5 years old, 6 years old. So I mean, we need to hit a grand slam, which I know we're going to do in New Brunswick. And every time we do an event, and the more our numbers grow, the more our membership grows. I mean, we're going to have a membership drive that we're going to kick off in New Brunswick. You'll have an opportunity to become a member, have a magazine subscription, get a hat, get some swag, get some decals for your truck and boat, be an official member of Canada Bass, just like OBN or just like Bassmaster. And when we go live with this in September, it'd be an awesome opportunity to support this international. Like, look at every other sport. I tried to follow Hockey Canada's model, right? Why can't we have national fishing teams that we send our best, most qualified anglers to go?
Amen.
Why not?
And
everybody else does.
I've had the pleasure of witnessing the CSFL, Renegade, and a few other bass tournaments, locally. The NOWT, as I said, it's near and dear to my heart, and I've got probably about a dozen names that I could rhyme off to you right now that would be able to qualify, in my opinion, on any stage when it comes to walleye or a multi-species for that matter. So yeah, there's some great growth. And it's all a buy-in, right? It's do we believe in it? Do we want this? Like, how badly do we want it? Because if we do, the payoff and the benefit is the sky's the limit.
Well, you look at what it's done. You look at where we've grown as an organization, how we've grown, how far we've come as an organization. I mean, we've got provincial funding, municipal funding, and regional funding to host an international fishing tournament for no return on investment. Like, you're not winning a paycheck at this tournament. We've got Jeff Gustafson and Cooper Gallant are going to be fishing on Team Canada, two of our Bassmaster elites. Bob Azumi is going to be our captain, and we've got a team of qualified veterans and a few new faces and local maritime guys from that area that can hammer on them. We went from being just a bunch of buddies that believed in this, paid out of our own pocket, went to these events. They cost $2 or $3 grand a person. You get your accommodations, you get everything. We took a lot of flack in the beginning too. And I think a lot of people in the public didn't really realize or see what was actually happening. They didn't understand because it's such a new initiative, but they've been having international bass fishing tournaments for a long time. Like, they had a world championships in South Africa almost 20 years ago. So we are You know, in North America, this blows my mind. In Canada, did you know that we have the #1 bass fishery in North America? Did you know that?
I would have guessed it, but again, I'm partial to it because I'm Canadian.
Last year's list, it was #3. And this year, Bassmaster Magazine ranked the St. Lawrence River as the #1 bass fishery. Now, I could take 9 out of 10 of my Canadian guiding customers, and before fishing with me, they had no idea that there was bass fishing to be had in the Thousand Islands. They had no idea. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we grew up in an environment of like shore lunches and cottage trips and fishing with grandpa and fishing with uncles. And, you know, bass fishing has never been a huge business in Canada, in Ontario, Quebec, wherever there's bass, Manitoba, Maritimes. But they've been having bass tournaments, competitive bass tournaments in New Brunswick for over 25 years. Yeah. And most of us had no idea that that was even a reality. So, and I share these examples really just to educate more than anything that, like, yeah, we are kind of a small fish in a big pond, but the reality is we have fisheries in Canada that blow the doors off anywhere I've ever fished. Yeah, you can go south and catch a 10-pound largemouth. Absolutely, you can. But I've been on Okeechobee before where you don't catch bass. Like, you do not. You fish the best looking stuff you've ever seen in your life. And I mean, you get a 2-degree temperature change and they don't eat, right? You can go out here on a bad day on Rice Lake and catch 15, 20 fish.
So, Joe, I've got to ask the question: as passionate and bought in as we are as Canadians, and for our American counterparts as well, they're equally as passionate and bought in. I have to ask the question from an international perspective. What's the mood? What's the feeling? Are they as passionate? Do they want this as badly as we do?
Oh yeah, like without question. I mean, you meet the guys from Team Mexico, and they're as passionate as they make them for bass fishing, for fishing in general. Same with the guys in the US, you know, all of those Elite Series guys that we watch on TV and Bassmaster Live, and, you know, they're no different than the three of us. They're all just regular dudes, you know. They caught them really good in some tournaments. They got good at catching them, and they made a career out of doing it. You know, and a lot of them were in environments where it was a little easier to make a career at it, but they had to hustle, right? But I've met countries we've had countries come up. I believe Costa Rica does not have smallmouth or largemouth bass, yet they enter a team and they come and fish in largemouth and smallmouth bass tournaments in the international scene. And I think that's so cool because, you know, you'll scan the crowd at Blast Off and there's Larry Nixon sitting in his Ranger. And there's the two dudes from Costa Rica who've never seen a largemouth before. And it's like, it's super cool. So, I mean, it's,
I'd say who do you think the most hardcore nation?
Oh, USA for sure. I mean,
see, I would say that the Mexican team are way more hardcore than the US team. I think they are just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I spent that much. Obviously, the U.S. team, they're hardcore into fishing, and they're all about it. But I think the Mexican team, I think they're more competitive than any other team out there. I've seen them at the MLFs. I've seen them at the Black Bass Championships in Cornwall. I've met these guys. You've spent some time with them. I think the Mexican team actually has they're the most competitive out of all the nations, the Italies, the Portugal.
Yeah, I can see it. I know a bunch of guys from Mexico, and they're pretty passionate. Richie Gonzalez is a good buddy of mine, and Victor Concha, and those guys they're good fishermen, and they bring it really hard.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. I got his jersey in the back.
Richie's?
Yeah, he gave me his jersey at the
that's killer.
The one at the event in Cornwall. Yeah.
He's a big teddy bear. Amigo!
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be coming to New Brunswick. So, you know what? This is going to be kind of a bit of a plug here, guys, for the event. It's going to be an awesome event. It's going to be great. Now, I got a couple housekeeping items before we get off track. If anybody in the Maritimes is watching this CFN episode, we're actively, we've put out, we're on the hunt for boats. So we offer boats to the internationals that fly in. So we offer boats and marshals. So you're basically paid very well, given a hotel room to let two guys fish on your boat and you drive them around. That's one thing. So boat numbers are looking good. There's no panic there, but I know there's anglers in Quebec, and maybe an angler from Ontario wants to trailer down and hang out at the event for, get a VIP pass and a hotel room and bring their boat down and help out the organization and get paid. So there is that. If you do want to go to Fredericton, if you do want to go as a spectator, we have got a lot of stuff lined up, and everything from a kids fishing derby to there's going to be an expo at the tournament. So when you walk into the expo, there's going to be all sorts of businesses set up around the perimeter of the tournament. So this isn't just a fishing tournament that we partnered with New Brunswick and Nakawik and Fredericton to have. This is a community event. And I think that's what makes this event so special is there's a lot of fishing tournaments. Show up, weigh in your bag, go home. We're going to have barbecues and seafood, and there's going to be live entertainment and a street band. There's going to be a whole street festival at Officer Square. We have a committee of 12 people on the ground in Ontario and the Maritimes that are behind the scenes doing a lot of work right now, everything from security and fencing and live entertainment. And it's going to be a show. If you're just a fan of fishing, or you want to get to one of the most beautiful places you've ever seen in your life, you have to go see New Brunswick. And I was so amazed at when you drive down that 2-lane highway, when you get out of Quebec and you hang a right and you're in New Brunswick, and you're like driving on a 2-lane road and you pass 7 vehicles and it's mountains on each side of you and you're driving alongside this river. It is breathtaking beyond measure. If you just want to take a trip in September, I highly suggest book a room somewhere at the Delta or somewhere and come down for the event and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I will make sure to get you in touch with Bob Nickerson, because I'm sure he would love to help.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 11 weeks left, Joe, and I think
that's terrifying, Moose.
I just heard your voice crack. 11 weeks left. So I'm thinking every other week, if you can give us an update. Scotty, if you're cool with it, bring him on Monday nights with us, and every other week, if you can give us an update on what's going on, because I think not only will it shed light to the event but it'll shed light to everything else that's happening and who's involved. Like, dude, I can't wait to meet Jeff. I'm so pumped to meet Jeff. I've heard a lot about Jeff. I wanted to go down to the Miramichi. I wanted to go down and do the stripe tournament. I wanted to go down and fish that world, and I spoke to him briefly, and like, there is so many parts of this that I'm so pumped for. You have no idea. The only thing I'm not pumped for, I'll be completely honest with you, it is going to be really hard for me to sit back and watch you guys fish. I want to fish so bad, but no, I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You know what's funny about this whole deal? Like, I'm behind the scenes, where Brent and I are the directors of the committee, and we're overseeing all of the work that's happening. Brent is on the team. Like, Brent qualified for the team. I fell into the alternate position. We dropped an angler from Team Canada. He can't make it. So guess who's up into a potential fishing spot now?
Oh boy.
So I've got and Captain Azumi said, like, if there is a team struggling, this national stuff. I'll talk about the team for a minute, because it's so different. There's no individualism. There's no room for it. You have to fish as a team, because your weight that you bring in is part of a point system on how you're scored. So if you don't bring a limit in, there's a penalty process. If you bring in 4 fish out of 5, your overall team gets penalized a point or 2, or however it works. So it's really unique, and it's very, very important that you work together as a team. And if you're struggling and you're not on fish and you just burned out a day, you might have to take a step back and let somebody else go in. So it's a really unique format. It's every team can carry up to 8 teams, and the top 4 get scored for points. So we have First Nations involvement. The boys from Curve Lake have put a team together. We in Cornwall, they started this initiative where we would offer a spot to the First Nations as their own nation, and they had a very successful team show up to Cornwall and compete against the guys. So we have the Wallastock First Nations from the St. John's River. I truly believe they are the owners of the river. They've given us permission to be on the river, and we have a team from Wallastock that's going to be fishing in the Pan American. So, it's a very diverse field of tournament anglers, guys that compete, guys that love to fish, elite series guys, local team guys. So it's a pretty neat deal, and there's some really good anglers coming. I'm very excited to see what happens.
This is so awesome. Well, definitely, Moose, we will make sure that we make this a regular on Mondays for updates, just so that we can engage folks out in the New Brunswick area. I will make sure to reach out to Rob and let him know that this is going on. I'm sure he already knows it's happening in his province, but just in case he has a host of anglers that would love to help out, maybe people that want to attend the event, but I'm sure our New Brunswick group from CFN is they're diehards, and they're very passionate about angling, and they love their province, especially the St. John's River.
Joe,
Scotty, if you guys want, you're more than welcome to bring a booth out and set up at the expo. Like, we can talk offline about how that would look if you wanted to have a Canadian Fishing Network booth.
I'd love to. Unfortunately, we do have a commitment that weekend that I have to go. So, yeah, no, I appreciate it, Joe. But as I said, we will make sure that if this does happen again close by or as far as New Brunswick, it's not a big deal. We will make sure that we were there because, we want to grow it. We want to grow this.
So now that the cat's out of the bag, for those of you that are attending our final event, I'm going to miss you guys. I was looking forward to it this year, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it. But yeah, man, I struggled with this one because I know I love Joe and I love the idea, and I think it's a very, very cool opportunity. And I called Scotty and I was like, dude, you're never going to believe it's the exact same time as the retreat. And I haven't missed the retreat yet, but unfortunately, I am going to miss the retreat this year. Yeah, man.
Hey, listen, as I said to you then, and I will say again now, when Bob Azumi reaches out and says, hey, Moose, I need a hand, you don't say
the
no.
one and only Joe Ford.
Yeah, you don't say no.
He made it sound so sweet, right? He's like, I was talking to the guys, and we never thought about A, B, and C. And Moose, you available? I was like, yeah, right away. Didn't even think about it. And then it wasn't until after I was like, oh, man.
You know how it all went down? I was thinking about Jeff and his role as the MC, and I was thinking about, how Bassmaster is so successful with their panel and their other, media personalities that are on the ground. Like Dave Mercer's not just on stage, he's also kind of behind the scenes doing interviews and stuff. And I'm like, man, we need somebody, like we need a, I don't want to say a B-roll guy, but we need like a, the background guy. Like we need, on the ground commentator. And there was only one person that jumped into my mind, and
you couldn't have picked a better person.
For sure.
You definitely hit it.
I was so excited about it too, and because I called Moose right away, and I was like, Moose, I just had this crazy idea.
Well, no, hold on a second. Let's back up for a minute. Joe broke my heart. And he's like, Moose, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God, I did too.
I was like, yes, absolutely. I would love to fish. I get a chance to fish. That's fantastic. Then he calls me back. He's like, Moose can't fish. He's like, I read it wrong. I wasn't looking at the right thing. But no, Joe, no.
Yeah, I thought Moose fell into an AOI spot, but the AOI list I was looking at wasn't updated. The last 2 events of the season weren't updated, and I was so excited because Moose is my bro. I was so excited. I had to call him right away to tell him, like, hey, you're going to get a chance to come to the qualifier. You have no idea how small I felt after making my second phone call to say I made a mistake. But the good news is, you know
I'm gonna
what?
say,
We're going
it's
to
just not
we're
good
gonna be
enough.
doing
Bruce.
this.
It's just
Hey,
not good enough.
we're going to be doing this every year. So work hard, crack a top 10
Absolutely.
AOI, and you know, it's attainable, right?
No, Joe, listen, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and filling in the fine folks. I think this is going to be
Thanks
a
for
very
having me.
cool event. Yeah, I look forward to keeping everybody up to date, and I think Scotty every other week. Joe, if you're available, we can come on and some updates. You know, I know this was a lengthy one tonight, and I know usually Scotty you don't go too late, but we'll keep it to a 15-minute minimum and go from there if you're cool with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and if I'm jammed up, guys, you can always use Brent or Chong or one of the other directors who's kind of in the loop. We can get somebody on.
Yeah,
But
I think a couple new faces. It'll keep things healthy and fun. And again, like I don't mind giving up my. I was going to talk about this stuff actually. Before you go, Joe, very quickly.
Make it quick because I'm getting chewed by mosquitoes.
Yeah, I can see that. Big Jim spoke about a bait. Jay spoke about a bait. What are your recommendations based on time of year that you're seeing now? Go.
Time of year based on what I'm seeing, depending on what you're doing, largemouth or smallmouth. Largemouth are shallow and they're finally starting to get aggressive. I was flipping some lily pads the other day and heavyweight, making sure I'm making contact with the bottom using, stained water, clean, not a lot of choked up lily pads, and those largemouth are in those really shallow. I'm actually just fished this brand new lake I've never been on called Graham Lake where my trailer park is. And it's the water's like 84 degrees. I caught a 5 and 2 4s under these pads in a place I've never been to. So the largemouth have finally flipped the switch from being in a post-spawn funk to creature bait, shallow cover, heavy braid, heavy rods. That's first and foremost. Smallmouth, took the kids on the St. Lawrence yesterday, and boy, oh boy, the little man, 6 years old, was slinging a spy bait and whacked a 5-pound smallmouth all by himself. As I was over my shoulder explaining to him, "Hey, T, that's like one of the best lures I've ever used for smallmouth fishing." And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Wham! You should have seen the look of surprise on his face when this thing came out of the water. So, lure of choice. I mean, moving baits right now for smallmouth. At least they're going to show themselves. And then you can slow down with like a drop shot or a tube or something finessey. Largemouth, get in the thick of it. Get in the
Thanks,
cover.
Joe. Appreciate it, buddy.
Okay, boys. Thanks for having me.
You take care, buddy.
Yeah,
Get inside.
good to see you, Scotty.
You as well, buddy. All the
All
best,
right.
my friend. Peace. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
It has been definitely a long night, Moose. Thanks
It
so
has
much.
been. I'm not even going to talk about any of this stuff here at all. It's fine. It's fine. Always giving up my time for everybody else. It's fine.
We'll do it next week.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
We'll do it next week.
I'm
But as
teasing.
always, Moose, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for showing up. And of course, thanks for enlightening us on what could be. I hope it to be. I'm wishing it, and I'm sure others that are watching and are going to watch this in the future are hoping that this turns into something really, really big because it sounds really.
I hope so. Honestly, I really hope so for his sake and the whole team. And I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen until you put your first foot forward, and you continue to go left, right. So,
right on, buddy.
He's
Love
what he
it,
needs.
Ash. You're rocking it better than anybody I know could. And the little kids out in the Maritimes, as Steve said, they're going to love the Mustafa Claus.
Moose Kringle. We'll go with Moose Kringle.
Sean Quinn also. I love Sean Quinn's. He said, "I've been telling my wife for years I'm an athlete. When you guys make it to the Olympic picks, she'll have to believe me at that point."
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know what? Like, I challenge anyone out there to spend 2, maybe 3 days on the water from 6 a.m. till 6 a.m. till 3, just power fishing. I mean, yeah, it's a combination between a lot of fresh air. Physically, sometimes people aren't like, oh, it's not physically demanding. Maybe not. Mentally, maybe not. But if you think about the aches and pains at the end of the day, I'm in bed by like 6:37. And then do 2 days in a row, oh, I'm dragging my ass. 3 days in a row, forget about it. I'm exhausted.
Amen.
I can't even see straight. The word athlete and physical work, a lot of people relate athletes with physically being like hard hitting, and there's the word athlete can be broken down into a number of different things, and it's not about the athlete, it's about the sport being recognized for what it is.
Amen. Great topic, buddy. Thanks for your time. Stay classy, my friends. Stay classy. Right on. All right, lads and gents and lasses and everyone else who has lasted as long as they did throughout this night, I can't thank you enough for your dedication and your commitment to what it is we're doing here with CFN, with everything that is upcoming, happening now, and going to be happening in the future. Your support means the absolute most. And one thing that I did want to mention, of course, we finished up our next gen raffle. It was just an honor. I was taken back by all the CFNers that gave in a huge way. And again, we're going to get back to you and make sure that all those prizes get divvied out and delivered, I would say, in a reasonable time. It might be a little bit tougher for some of those larger prizes, but we'll get to it. In the meantime, have yourselves a fantastic week. Get out fishing tomorrow if you can before Hurricane Beryl rears her ugly head up here in Ontario. And for those out west, man, I tell you, I hope you guys catch a cool place, catch some shade, and catch some big fish, because I tell you, it's getting awfully hot out west. In the meantime, love you all. Stay tuned for Tourney Tuesday for all you CFN fish offers, and of course the NOWT Power Hour that will be airing here at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. In the meantime, have yourselves a great week. Peace. Love you all. Dave, take us away.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.